No Jumper, coolest podcast in the world. And today we're in here with someone I love to speak to, someone who's one of my favorite people to have conversations with, Van frickin' Lathan.
What up, what up, what up, what up?
And of course I got AD Grizzly with me.
Yes.
Yeah, so I wanted to start with a question because I'm a fan of the platform.
Yes.
I'm a fan of the platform. Are y'all good?
Who's your who?
He's pointing at
Oh,
Yassi.
you mean Yassi? Yeah, we good.
Y'all good?
yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you.
Because you called me too.
I did. I did. I'm going to be honest with you. I was watching that shit like it was a soap opera. Y'all had me. I don't know if it's because wasn't too much other shit going on, but I rewatched the interview like 5 times, right? Whatever, as much of it as I could watch. Then I watched all the reactions. Then I watched the follow-up. I was like on some housewife shit with the drama going on over here at No Jumper. But I'm glad that y'all was able to, piece shit up.
Yeah, when you called me, I was like, oh my God.
During that OT Yassi period, there was a part of me that was like, damn, like, there must not be that much other good shit to pay attention to right now because people are really talking about this. But I feel like a lot of times in rap, like there'll be some shit like that going on, but then meanwhile there's like a bigger story that people are paying attention to. I was like, this must be kind of a dry moment because people are really into this at this moment.
And it's weird because people that I used to talk to like actual important shit about, like people that would hit me up like, Van, what's going on with like Israel and Palestine and Van, what we gotta do about this? I was like, yo man, did you see this shit though? And we was talking about it, but it was dope. It was dope, man. That's what happens sometimes when you're making content.
Yeah.
Signals get crossed.
Well, but that was a weird moment where, we've always wanted to do more podcasts on this channel and stuff. And for me, typically when I do a show like with the No Jumper show or whatever, it's kind of like, let's just put people together and maybe we'll mix and match, we'll remove somebody, we'll add somebody new, etc. But we don't do a lot of pre-planning for the streams. And with AD, it's kind of like, oh, we want to give you a podcast. And when he was suggesting different people they want to do the podcast with,
I wasn't missing.
Well, but from my perspective, it's kind of like, how much do you want to police that? If you're me, like, how much do you want to get in there and be like, do an episode together and then let's really look at it and see how we think the vibe is and stuff. AD just jump in and he's like, I can do this shit with anybody. I'll just hop on with. So I feel like him and Yassi maybe there could have been more work done before that to figure out that they were going to hate each other if they continued to if they did a podcast together.
This is my standpoint on the shit, right?
Is hate a good word there? No.
Nah, because my thing is that
It's a strong word.
the media and everybody else had opinions when off the camera, I'm talking to this girl every fucking day and we're discussing all type of random shit. So it's just like, I feel like more people put pressure on us than what me and her was talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Because what happens when you're making content, I'm sure y'all know this. Number one, I thought she conducted herself really, really well. I just did. Thought
and keep in mind, she was brand new to, that was like the very beginning of her doing anything on camera as far as I know.
But what happens is when you make content and when you hear, you're not like a person anymore, right? You become an avatar for people's feelings. So when they are angry, they then plug in with you being angry. When they are turned up about something, they plug in with you being turned up about something. And then when they see so much of you and you get in the position and you react differently than the way they would have reacted, they go, oh shit. Is this person really worth being sort of the spokesperson for my feelings and my emotions and my thoughts? Because here's a situation where I would have clearly done A, and then now they are doing B. The thing with that is and sometimes it's hard to remind people, but I'd be like, I'm a person too.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So sometimes, if you saw me with the Kanye thing, it's like, oh my God, he said everything I would have said. Well, sometimes I'm going to say shit that you wouldn't have said. Sometimes I'm going to say shit that you won't like. And sometimes I'm going to say shit that's wrong. But if you fuck with me, you fuck with me. And you got to fuck with me through all of that. You know what I mean? And so when I saw that, it's like, that's what happens. That to me is when you lean into that. And that's kind of what, because that's what people want to see. People want to see people who go through shit and figure shit out. Because believe it or not, it's not on the internet, but we do that every day.
Right. Because we all want to be the Joe Budden, when we do podcasts, because this is someone that his fans have stuck around for a lot of mental illness, a lot of moments in which they, clearly a large percentage of the fan base was not in agreement with him, and they suck around. And that's the kind of fan base you want. I want to be able to have a mental breakdown on here, and I want you all to watch and laugh and be amused by my suffering, and then still tune in next week when my head is screwed on a little bit better, right?
You did last week.
I tweaked out a little last week.
I didn't see that. What happened last week?
Okay.
I'm behind.
It was a lot of shit going on. Pieces.
There was a lot of shit going on. Fusi and Keemstar pulled up, and we did the podcast with them. And then what happened is that there's another rapper that we're all cool with, that we all are like friendly with and stuff, but I haven't seen him in a long time. Somebody gave him the address. He pulls up, and we're trying to like actually do the podcast after these guests left. We're trying to get back into it and stuff. And you know, there's just like miscommunication where he thought he was pulling up. And actually, those people had already left. We didn't even know why he was pulling up. And I kept trying to like get back into the conversation. And like when you do a podcast, you really need to be, especially a live podcast, you need to be in an environment where nobody can bother you.
Yeah.
You know, you need to like not be hearing people talking in the background if people show up. And that really got me fucking flustered to the point where I probably overreacted, because I felt like I was having my ability to like get focused on the podcast kind of robbed from me. And it wasn't his fault, because I ended up figuring out that, you know, whatever. We talked, it's whatever. But yeah, I tweaked out a little.
Well, I mean, look, you're the top guy. There's only so much you can tweak, Adam. You can't really tweak. That's what really happens when you get in the position. Like AD know this, when your homies are like dependent on you, your ability to tweak becomes minimal, because then your tweak is then fucking exacerbated and exaggerated,
put under the magnifying glass.
Right.
Let's figure out what's going on here. But that's what's weird, and sometimes it feels like a double standard. When
like
you
LeBron can't tweak. Alex Caruso can tweak.
But okay, there's a lot of examples I can think of, like, you know, rest in peace. But when Nipsey punched that security guard, everybody fucking loved it. It's like a historic moment in hip hop, because everybody's impression of Nipsey is that he's such a good dude that he had to be right in that situation. If I punch the security guard, people is going viral for sure. I don't think I'm going to get the benefit of the doubt.
Well, yeah, probably not. But like,
I'm just saying that some people get a little bit more leeway with that.
It depends on the security guard.
Definitely,
That's true.
Right, but
if they're trans, it's over. Yeah.
But whoever your identity is, that's what you lead with, right? We know Nip was solid. God bless him. We know Nip was solid. So, shit, I'm gonna err on the side of whoever fucked with him was in the wrong. You know what I mean?
Poor security guard. That guy's got to live with everybody thinking that's the best clip ever.
Talking about when he slapped him?
The victory slap.
Can you imagine that security guard having to deal with that coming up every couple months?
They should sell that as an NFT.
They should. By the way, I am completely and totally anti-violence, but that was a beautiful slap.
Yeah, it was so well performed that was a big part of it.
He reached back. It was almost like a loving slap, because you know when your mama slap you, she don't do it with malice. She does it with intent to straighten your ass up, and that's why she comes all the way back, because she's accessing her emotions before she come through and slap the shit out of you. That's kind of how Nip did it. Nip was just like, "Yo, get right."
But you seem like you speak about child abuse kind of lovingly there.
Speak about child abuse.
That's not.
This is a
For
white
me,
thing. This is a white thing.
Yeah,
For
that's
me,
not child abuse.
I'll
This is a
never
white
slap
thing.
my kid. To
This
me,
is a white
that just is totally off limits.
But you know what else?
You need that shit though, bro.
I
Like
don't
as a
think
kid,
so.
yeah,
Parker
kids
don't need
do.
to get slapped.
Not yet.
Not yet.
She's telling you, "Fuck you, Dad. You could go kill yourself."
Well, let me tell you something else though. It also depends on the stakes, right? So where I'm from, my parents say, "Hey Van," like I'm South Baton Rouge. My parents say, "Hey Van, be here at this certain time," right? What if I say no? I might get really fucked up for real. You know what I'm saying?
But
what
isn't
if
that a bad thing? Like, I don't want my kids to think that a verbal dispute can just like logically elevate to a violent dispute. I don't want them to think that's even an option.
I mean, but as somebody who doesn't hit their kids, I needed that shit back then, especially where I grew up at. You know what I'm saying? You need discipline, because what it teaches you is you have respect for authority figures. Like, without that, you're going to go around telling everybody, "Fuck you, I don't have to listen to you." And you might get hurt in the process because you didn't get taught at home how to handle yourself around authority.
My pops used to say, you have to be more afraid of me than you are of the streets. You know what I mean? Like, because the stakes were so high. Now, obviously, you know, I don't have any kids, but I couldn't see myself. I look at the kids now. I don't even want to discipline my fucking dog. I got the cutest dog in the world, and my girl be like, "Oh, you got to make him do something for the treats. Whatever I eat, I give him half." She just look at me. It's like whatever. But when we grew up, like they were afraid. I'll tell you a story real quick. My pops is in the car one time, and my uncle who passed away, he had come home from jail, and my dad is like on the phone with him. And whatever is happening in this phone call, it's obvious that my uncle is back on crack. Whatever's happening, like, so he gets off the phone, hangs the phone up, he looks at me like, yo, man, Mark back on that shit, man. Fuck. And I'm sitting in the car, 12, 13, actually a little bit older than that, maybe 14, 15 years old. And he looks at me and he goes, yo, if I ever catch you fucking with drugs, I'm going to beat the living shit out of you. If I ever catch you bringing that shit in your mama house, like, I'll kill you myself. And I'm sitting there like, yo, I didn't do nothing. Like, I'm sitting here, I'm on the little Game Boy or whatever. Like, I didn't do nothing. Why are you getting at me? He's afraid. He's looking at his brother, somebody who he loves, and he's seeing what could happen if you don't listen, if you go astray, if you play in a certain way. And I love my uncle to death. I'm not trying to just, besmirch his name. He's passed on now. But, that's a lot for a man to kind of keep his kids away from. So they don't always do it the most elegant way.
And to be honest, when I think about drugs and how I might one day talk to my kid or kids about drugs, that is the one thing that it immediately just pops into my head that I would want to basically threaten them with violence to let them know how serious that is. Like, this is actually a big enough deal that, and there's other things too, like in general, like just being a bad person in general, but with the drug thing, how dangerous it is, how unprepared they are for a kid, as a kid. It seems to me like that's one of the few things where you really want them to be that scared of you. I guess the question is, given that everybody gets basically told not to do drugs throughout their life, and then everybody ends up at least experimenting with drugs, large majority of people, is making it that taboo actually beneficial to your goal of keeping them off drugs for their entire life?
Yeah, with the fentanyl and everything it is now, I tell my little brother all the time, I be like, nigga, smoke your weed. I don't care. I don't even care if you drink. Don't overdo the shit. But when you getting into this powder and you get into this crystal and all this shit that these kids is doing now, all these pills and shit, it's like, nah. And I'd rather fuck you up than see you in the goddamn morgue, because I'm going to feel bad that I could have intervened in doing that shit. And it's the same way like my mom when it comes down to gangbanging. You feel me? My little brother that's in the room right here, she made him go to totally different schools. You know what I'm saying? Took him totally different out of the way, because guess what? You have a son that's in prison. You have a son that's a gang member. He has a brother that got murdered that was also a gang member. You take him out of that element, you don't want that no more. And she's threatening him all the time. I can go out to the park for 10 hours and come back home and it's cool. He can't go to the park for 3 hours as a kid because she's thinking that he's getting into something, that trauma right there.
But she wasn't thinking that about your childhood? She didn't really know that it was going to be like that for you?
I was a first generation. I was older. You know what I mean? They grew up in a community that everybody knew each other like family. They played cards together. Everybody hosted stuff. You know what I mean? There wasn't no gang members and stuff like that. And then come gang members and things of that nature, then my grandma has to deal with that shit. And then me and my homeboys are like the first generation of our neighborhood who making the neighborhood go crazy. And then my little brother is the second generation doing all the bullshit, and then it comes to him.
And it's not foolproof, by the way.
Right.
You know, the sort of societal conditions that certain people exist in, sometimes they win. Sometimes they win a little bit, sometimes they win a lot. Sometimes people dabble, sometimes it's a way of life. But I think for the generation, especially, you know, where I'm from, I think for the generation, my father, my uncles, all of them, they were trying to figure out how they changed outcomes, you know? With me specifically, with my sister, with my brothers, with some of they're trying to figure out how they change outcomes. And they look at it and sort of, when you just let people decide, you have to look at the matrix of options that they have. And I think that's what people don't really understand about society as a whole, right? So look, and we talk about this in terms of a difference between maybe how you grew up and how I grew up, and I don't know exactly what your story was, but I do know I'm in the crib with my homeboy Gray one time. Gray is a white dude. Gray's mom comes home. She's about to take Gray to go do something, right? And she says, well, look, we need to go ahead and go get ready now, because when we start going, it's gonna be too chaotic. I'm gonna have to get with your little brother. He goes, well, it's not till 6:30. Why would we have to do it now? And he asked his mother why. And I remember thinking to myself, this motherfucker is crazy. I was thinking to him, I'm like, oh shit, Gray, put your head down. It's about to happen to you. You know what I'm saying? And she looks back at him and, oh shit, somebody following me.
It's Adam. Oh my God. Oh shit.
Connecticut. Who the fuck do I know in Connecticut? All right,
Bill
sorry
collector.
about that.
So anyway, so she looks back at him and then they fucking negotiated, right? And I thought about that. I thought about the fact that like a lot of these things like don't talk while grown folks is talking. Like don't, because what are the grown folks talking about? They talking about some shit that your little mind probably ain't ready to fucking, you know what I mean? Like it's when you have different circumstances, you have different conversations. And so there was a narrow path growing up in Gardere Lane, South Baton Rouge for you to kind of like stay out of all of that shit. And you had to thread a certain needle. So there was all of these other options, right? And they're so easy. You could play basketball all evening, then somebody could be like, hey, Van, take this up the street for me. And they like $50, $100, and you like, why wouldn't you want the $50 or $100? Of course you're going to do that, right? When they came to me, I would be like, no, I was scared. What if I take it up there and then I see my pops? Or what if somebody sees me doing that and then they tell my dad? Or what if, God forbid, I get Pop doing it and now he got to come get me? I was actually afraid of that moment. And so I never fucked around.
Yeah. When I think about my childhood, I'm not sure to what extent I should have been scared of my parents having that reaction. Like I knew my parents were going to have that reaction if I got caught doing something illegal. And then I proceeded to get caught doing illegal shit like over and over and over. And the fact that they kept getting more angry at me and my dad kept beating my ass worse and worse, somehow like my brain was disconnected from that. I still felt like I'm gonna just do the shit that I want to do, and who gives a fuck about the repercussions.
You white. That's how y'all look at life. It's like, it's my fucking country. I fucking do whatever the fuck I want. You don't tell me shit. And you know what? Your parents were probably torn because they were probably like, damn, he keeps fucking up. But God damn it, he's got his own mind.
I don't know. I think it took years for them to start to think that. To start to be like, maybe this is a good thing that he's got so much spunk. Pause. Spunk. Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I'm still in very much like the honeymoon stage of my child rearing, where my kid is 6, almost 7 months. She just does cute things. Like the worst thing that she does is like shit her pants or like throw food at the wall. Can't really get mad at her about anything yet.
Well, you'll never be able to.
Yeah.
You'll never be able to get mad at her about anything.
Yeah.
Because your life has been so well documented that when she starts to test you, she is going to have so much actual shit. It would be like Prince having kids. Think about Prince having kids, and it's like, don't stay up late. What the fuck are you talking about, Dad?
Protected sex only.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, what are you like, Dad? What are you talking about? Hey, don't stay out late. Yeah. Hey, you're like you know what I mean. So it's gonna be. What would you be disapproving of?
I don't know. I mean, she's gonna have to get much older for me to actually start to get upset about things that she's doing. But you know, a thing that comes to mind for me a lot is, okay, she's gonna know that I fucking love all these rapper guys, right?
Yeah.
And that, like, we had a guy stop by the other day, and he was so fucked up. And like, we love this guy's music, but even if my daughter was like 8, I probably would have had to basically explain to her like, he's fucked up. Like, there's a reason why he's acting like that.
Right.
But like, what is that gonna say to at some point, doesn't my kid have to have a reckoning of like, why do you fucking love this shit so much? But you're also telling me that the stuff that they're doing is really, really bad, and you would potentially beat my ass for doing it. I mean, how do you make sense of that at a certain point, you know?
I think
That's a good question.
I think it just happens, right? Because I remember one day when like it materialized in my brain, like who Mick Jagger and Marvin Gaye and all of these guys were, some kind of way who they were and like everything that came with that. You just know it. You just know that these are rock stars and these are people and that society looks at them with a different set of rules. I personally think everyone who clutches their pearls when they see rappers and celebrities acting up, I think they're telling an emotional lie. I think there is no possible way that platforms like this, platforms like TMZ where I used to work, all of these other platforms would exist if people did not like that. They love that. And the reason why they love it is because it is freeing to them. The reason why The Sopranos is the #1 television show of all time. The reason why The Godfather is the #1 movie of all time. If you watch those movies, they have very clear, sort of almost religious sermons in them about why those guys don't follow the rules. Like Vito Corleone says, hey, you think that I'm going to be another Pesavante? I'm going to be another guy who just some schmuck up here following the rules, going to work, going home, coming in like that. These are my morals, and this is my family, and I don't want to do it this way. Tony Soprano, same guy who has all of these family problems, all of these issues, right? But at the same time, lives by his own code. And people, that is an aphrodisiac to them. They like that.
Right.
Like they love to see that. So when they see rappers and shit tearing up shit, or rock stars tearing up shit, or all of that, I promise you, they love that.
Don't you think it's irresponsible for the media to basically like create these films propping up these guys who, when I look at a lot of that stuff as I get older, I'm like, Tony Soprano's supposed to be the fucking protagonist in this show, and he's staying out all
Horrible
night,
guy.
fucking whores every fucking night, ignoring his family, ignoring his wife, putting his wife through hell. He's clearly like, if you were going to warn your daughter about the types of guys that she doesn't want to end up with, yes, he goes out and gets his money, but he does all kinds of abhorrent things. I don't know if he actually kills anyone on the show, but he's clearly ordering.
He
He does. He kills people.
Yeah, he kills people.
I mean, but don't you think it's kind of disturbing that like a lot of the greatest American cinematography focuses on these kind of things? And is it irresponsible for them to continue doing that, given just how much we know about people?
But he like you said, he was flawed, but the fact that a mob boss would go to therapy and it was like looked down upon as well too, was just like, like, man, like that's real. Like, what's more real than that?
But like in American TV, that's like the start of, or a start of us taking a more introspective look at these, because like you're viewing him through the therapist's eyes on the show as through her eyes. You're doing a lot of terrible antisocial behavior, and it's clearly going to destroy your relationship with your kids, with your wife, etc. And that is an important show for that reason. But could you just have a real like mob TV show or series like that really just props these guys up and doesn't also call attention to the fact that they're horrible people? I don't know if you could really make a show like that in this modern
Nobody
arena,
will watch
right?
it ever.
Probably not.
But they have to acknowledge how flawed they are, because that's what The Sopranos was, is that you get to look at him through her eyes and see how flawed he is in her eyes.
Let me tell you about a scene in The Sopranos specifically that talks about exactly what we're talking about. So remember when Melfi was attacked?
Yes.
So Dr. Melfi was attacked, right? It was like an attempted rape or something like that.
Right.
Or maybe she was raped. I can't remember.
I think she was,
attempted.
right?
Yeah, I can't remember what
It was
happened.
in a parking garage,
In
right?
the parking garage,
Yeah.
right? So it goes down. She's sitting there with Tony, and you are watching them, right? And the whole thing is he's asking her what's wrong, and the whole thing is she going to tell him what happened? The audience wanted her to tell Tony. If you go back and you watch that scene, the audience wanted her to say something, right? Because they knew what was going to be the outcome when she did, that Tony was going to call whoever he needed to call, and whoever needed to get dealt with was going to get dealt with. You wanted that. So as bad of a guy as Tony is, he represents something that's primal. The question is, why does the audience resonate with Tony Soprano? Forget about the responsibility for a second about making the show. Does that mean that people want to fuck whores all night? Does that mean that people want to skirt the law?
Well, we're fascinated by people who push all of their worldly concerns aside and just sort of live that life, because it's like Tony Soprano or fucking, Pooh Shiesty. They're the most extreme versions of ourselves.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So the question is, all of these societal constraints, like, we've created them, and people like it. I mean, that's civilization is essentially like a pact, right? It's like, I won't kill you, I won't steal your car, I won't do this. A bunch of little treaties that we make with people, right? And that's why people get upset when there's injustice, because we say, hey, we're living up to our part of the treaty. We're not doing this. We're paying taxes. Then why are the cops killing us? Like, it doesn't happen to Adam. So why are you sort of valuing and holding up one agreement, and the other agreement you're not even recognizing it. So what is it about us? We're doing the same thing. Not everybody wants to do that. People look at that sometimes as limiting. They wonder, what would my life be like if I just said, fuck it, and did everything that I wanted to do? People love people who just go off and break rules and push lines and test things, right? Because some people look at some of the rules that we've made in order to have society and they go, hey, it's like not as much fun this way. And there have to be some people who don't live by this, and they take solace in that.
I mean, I think you can draw a direct line between The Sopranos and Breaking Bad.
Same thing.
Breaking Bad is different because it's less that he's taking part, joining the society that has been passed down through the years where there's a structure. No, this is like a guy who's going through shit and he decides that he's going to break the law. And then throughout the show, you're forced to reckon with the question of why is he doing this? And over time on the show, he admits, I told the world the lie that I was doing this for my family. But the truth is I was doing this for me.
I like it.
And I think that that's a really important thing to reckon with. And I think a lot of people tell themselves convenient lies about why they live their life the way that they do. And I think it's always, important for people to sort of try to dig a step deeper. Like for me, with even just doing interviews, like I'm always kind of trying to figure out in my head, like, what is the thing that's driving you to do this? Like what really, as you break down your, worldly concerns, what is it that's getting you out of bed in the morning? Like what drives you is important. And a lot of people never even get to the point of thinking about that.
And bro, that's like the Joker is just as popular as Batman. You know what I'm saying? And from one standpoint, you can look at the Joker and say, you're right. You know what I mean? Batman, yeah, you may be moral and you may take the moral high ground. The Joker was like, you give this in front of people and they're going to act crazy the way that they want to fucking act.
And if they were real, Batman would be in prison just like the Joker. They're both breaking the law pretty much in equal amounts, enough to send you to prison for life.
Both totally insane. One just is, empowered by a tremendous amount of privilege.
Right.
Batman broke the moment he saw his parents.
He's got the cops fucking with him.
Yeah.
He's doing press conferences with him and shit. The Joker never gets that ability. You know what's interesting though? Are you still in therapy?
I am.
When I decided I want to do therapy, and I started thinking about who do I know that is, conscious of their emotional state that I could ask for a recommendation. So now I'm in the position where me and Van are essentially seeing the same person. Let's not even say man or woman, but we both dump our thoughts out to this person, and then that person can never, ever legally or, whatever, say anything about what the other person has said to the other person, which is kind of interesting to know that. Because if we were fucking the same girl, we would be in a constant state of worry. Right. Like, what is she going to reveal to, et cetera? Like, but we have like this relationship with the same person, and we don't know. I've mentioned him once or twice, like in my sessions, and there's not even any acknowledgement. Like, oh, Van called me the other day and said this. There's not even any acknowledgement that she even knows who that is.
Yeah, just completely. I really haven't heard about it since the moment I made the rec.
Interesting.
Just totally professional.
Yeah.
One of the best in the business.
Yeah.
But therapy, I wouldn't have made it through the pandemic without therapy. Let me tell you something. This is like weird. So during the pandemic, I went, I think, 3.5, 4 weeks without sleeping.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
So
we didn't change our lives almost at all.
So like, I was scared. I have an anxiety deal, right? And I was scared. And then the fear. So this is what happened. So me and Jamel Hill, shout out to Jamel Hill, we went and we met with this guy. And this guy was like he was a producer who was thinking about doing a television show or something like that. Jamel's like, come meet the guy. So we went and we met with the guy. This was maybe like March 5th or 6th. We met
Early days.
Early days. Now, so early enough that we knew what the coronavirus was and we were watching it because I had hand sanitizer on my keys, but everything was still open, right? It wouldn't shut down until the next week. So, I got the hand sanitizer on my keys. I'm using it and all that. We meet with this guy at the Kings Trail Cafe. We sit down, we have dinner. We sit down, we have lunch. And when we have lunch with the guy's like sweating in his eyes or whatever. And I'm like, yo, man, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I just came back from Mexico. I got a cold or whatever. And I'm like, yo, this is not the And he's like, fuck that. That's not a big deal. That's not anything. Blah, 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 blah. So we sit down, we talk about the show or whatever. Jamel leaves. I get my food. I'm so scared that I don't want to eat, so I get my food to go. And so I get the food and I leave. Next week, cool. Week after that, cool. I get a text from Jamel, and Jamel says, hey, just to let you know, this guy tested positive for the coronavirus. And I was there with them the whole time. So at this point, we didn't know anything. Remember, this was the Black Plague. This was certain death. This was the end of society. I fucking lost it. I called my manager. I called everyone. I'm like, yo, I had lunch with somebody who had the coronavirus. I was like, when was it? I was like, it was like 14 days ago. My manager went, you're fine. Like, you're okay. I could not shake it. I started washing my hands to the point that my fingers were bleeding the whole night. And then one night, I was on the phone all night with a friend of mine, and I thought that I was going to fall asleep after I got off the phone, and I didn't. Like, fuck it, just all night or whatever. Then the next night I didn't. And then the next night I didn't. And then the next night I did. And my body did this weird thing to where I would try to fall asleep, right? And as I was falling asleep, just when my body started to drift off, I would jolt back awake. And it would do this over and over and over again all night. And I never forget, there is one night, and I have a Benelli M4 under my bed, like a shotgun. And there was one night to where I went, I literally can't do this anymore. Like my body was on fire. I would walk by people in downtown LA, and they would be homeless people, and they would be sleeping, and I would want to switch places with them.
Damn.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, literally, I can't do this. Like, this is like no possible way to live, right? And I started laughing. I was like, I'm fucking need help. Like, I'm crazy. So I reached out and I started doing therapy. I scaled things back. I got into my sleep hygiene, and like after a while, I started sleeping a little bit, and then one night slept.
Wow. Do you think that you just were holding it all in and just letting it all build up to the point where you just ended up with this irrational ass conclusion, like your body not being able to sleep, or what do you account for? How do you account for that?
I think that the body mind connection is a complicated thing, and I think as we get older, you know, things that we had to work for in our youth that we didn't have to work for in our youth, we have to work a little bit for them. You know, it didn't, when you was 24, 25, 23, 21, 22, you put your body through anything and it just snaps right back. But now there's a balance and a piece that you have to find. And sometimes you got to redo the roadmap a little bit. And for me, somebody who's always had like an anxiety disorder, being in a situation to where I'm thinking that society is going to crumble upon itself, it was a lot for me.
Yeah.
So I just had to find ways to cope and deal with it, you know?
Yeah, like there was a moment where one of my employees kind of came to me and they were super stressed out about the pandemic and everything. And like, you know, from a very practical reason, because it really looked like maybe we're not doing any interviews for 6 months or a year or whatever. Like what is the business going to look like if we're like really fucked by this thing? And on one hand, I kind of knew that that was a reasonable concern. But at the same time, I'm just so used to having a fucking Superman this whole through this shit. Like I feel like I can't really like worry publicly. I can't like be that I can't show weakness, at least in this one part of my life, because there's so many people that depend on this. And if I like were to let it show that I'm like really worried, and I really wasn't worried because I just didn't even feel like it was an option for me to be worried. I don't know. I felt like I really wasn't worried because I knew that I would do whatever it took to make sure the shit was all right, up to and including things that I shouldn't do. And I guess that kind of was my attitude going into it, is like, if this needs to be a heroin trafficking operation for a few months, maybe we got to do that. Let's get out there. I got AD with me.
I know. Hey, no, and speaking like what you said too, Van, like I used to have very, very, very bad anxiety as well too, bro. And that's kind of like nowadays I have like I don't give a fuck attitude, because it's like when your mind, like that shit can really fucking drain you. And like I remember I lost my homie Donnie B. He got killed on my porch. Like that happened. I didn't have no one told me go to therapy or something like that. It was just like niggas told me like, nigga, that happens in the hood, get over it. Then I lost my homie D-Mac, then I lost my homie Tree, then I lost Marvin, then I lost Solo. And the list goes on, and I'm just taking shit on, and I'm thinking that shit is normal, and it really wasn't normal. And then, you know, I went to the doctor, and they gave me these little, what are they called, beta blockers or something like that.
I take those.
Yeah.
How are those? I've always wanted to try those.
I didn't like that shit.
Yeah, really? I take those. Because you were they probably wanted to slow your heart rate down a little bit.
Yeah. And bro, it got to a point too, like
get the adrenaline out of your blood.
Bro, it was a girl that I was dealing with at the time. Every time, like, I only felt safe in my own home.
Right.
And like we would go to the movies, and out of nowhere, like it'd kick in. I'd be at the movie theaters. I'm thinking, oh, I got heart problems or something. Heart beating like crazy. Feel like I'm about to pass out. I remember one time.
Panic attacks.
Yeah, I remember one time I ran to the fucking ambulance. I mean, not the ambulance. The firefighters I seen across the street, and it got to a point. The girl I was dating at the time, she was like, "I'm tired of this shit." Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah,
what?
like no, for real.
Yeah, she's like, she can't do it.
Yeah, I'm just like, man, something is like something is mentally wrong with me because I'm getting tests and they're saying that I'm physically fine and shit like that. And I didn't want to think like, oh, okay, it's mental. And I went, they said, oh, you have anxiety. And I'm like, you know, you need to just let shit out. And then that like changed my whole approach on everything. Like I just stopped shutting up after that. I don't give a fuck no more. You know what I mean? And since then, life has been way better. I haven't had problems since then either. Gets me in trouble sometimes though.
So there was one point in my life where I was calling the ambulance so much that like I was sitting outside one time and I got the same crew again. And the guy, like, and I remember I'm sitting outside. I'm like, this time is the time. It's fucked up. And the guys are walking up, and I saw them, and I knew the guys because they had come out to my job before. And the dude was like, Van, do you want to go to the hospital? And I'm like, I don't want to go to the hospital because if I go to the hospital, they're just going to tell me nothing is wrong with you. And the guy goes, okay, I want you to concentrate on something. It's not that there's nothing wrong with you. That's not the thing. It's like you have an anxiety disorder. It's like the only thing is the prognosis is better, right? Because there's nothing wrong with you inside of your heart, inside of your body. But as far as what you're dealing with right now, this is a mental dysfunction that will progress. So stop looking at it as if there's nothing wrong. There's a lot of times they tell people that there's nothing wrong because they can't find a blocked valve or, a blocked artery or a floppy valve or something like that. But there is, and you just got to deal with it. So for me, it was like there'll be years where everything is okay. And then one day at TMZ, passed out in the office, was gone a whole month. There'll be years when stuff is okay. And then sometimes it's not. But that's life. Like what he's talking about right now, we never talk about that. We never talk about the fact that I get to 19 and niggas just start dying. Hey, Jason's dead. Hey, George is dead. Hey, Teffer's dead. Hey, Drew is dead. Hey, and they just start dying. And then you look around, you're like, what? I remember my homeboy Gino, shout out to Gino, like we talking one time and Gino asked me, he goes, Van, what do you want? I was like, man, I want to go to LA and I want to do all of this stuff. He's like, you know what I want? I want to live. He's like, bruh, I want to live, man. And then you expect it to just move on.
Right.
It's just part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I talk to people in here all the time who've, you know, maybe had like 10 or 20 of their friends killed by the time they're out of high school, and people who've seen, you know, people like blow their heads off with guns accidentally, like just in their house in front of them, or they're sitting somewhere and people pull up and shoot their friend right in front of them. And so many people in rap or in the streets, whatever, they have never thought of this as something that is traumatic enough to warrant something like therapy. Whereas if you go over to the other side of the fence, you know, if some kid gets killed in the average like uppity, like, you know, high income bracket white community, if someone gets killed in your high school, the whole school might be in therapy for it, or at the very least their friends are going to be doing grief counseling, all that kind of shit. And yeah, I just feel like there's a big extent to which that's just not really dealt with. Last night I was watching that Illmatic documentary on Netflix. I'm not sure if anybody else has seen this.
I have.
But there's a picture of Nas sitting on the bench in Queensbridge with a whole shitload of people, and some of them are little kids, like 10 years old. And one of his friends goes through the whole list. This guy's facing a murder. This guy's doing life. This guy's doing life. This guy got killed. This guy got killed. This, like, it's fucked. Nas is like the only one on this bench who still has a good normal life.
And do you know why? Because he had a get out of jail free card. He had a singular otherworldly talent. And that's kind of the thing, right?
That rescued him as a young kid, that pulled him away from all that, because he saw his friend Ill Will get killed. He didn't. I don't think he was there, but his brother was there. For his brother got shot in the shooting, and after that, they said we barely saw Nas around. After that, he just wasn't hanging out outside the apartments anymore.
Yeah, a lot of times it's just like waiting for a lottery ticket to cash in. Like you've been living here 6, 7 generations, 3, 4 generations, right? We just hope to God somebody 6'8". We hope to God somebody could sing. We hope to God somebody could rap. And if that don't ever come, because then sometimes it comes. Like when Pop died, you know what I think about? So first of all, Pop Smoke, human being. It's a human person. So everybody thinks about Pop Smoke dying based upon like his ability to entertain them and what he was going to become and everything that didn't happen, right? I look at the fact that the life is over and he barely got to live. You know what I mean? What we talking, 20, 21 years old? But when somebody at that position in their life dies, there's a black hole that is created. Because especially in our communities, like that person brings just so many people with them, even if it's just tangentially. So like when we talking about Pop or King Von or any of these guys, like this shit, look, I'm not about to preach to nobody, but this shit is like, this is over nothing. This is really hurting things. Like it's just getting wild. And the reality is that there are so many victims that are created outside of just the person themselves. Every life is valuable. Every life means something. But in these communities, man, if people have the ability to move outside of that, it changes lives around them. Then your cousin, I remember Ludacris had a verse one time to where he said he sent his cousin to culinary arts school, right? And then his cousin becomes a chef. Well, fuck, now they kids go to a good school. Now they kids get to go, now they got a better school system. They got all of this just because your man can rap. But if somebody takes him out at 20 or 21 or 22, 23 over some dumb shit, over something that don't even matter, then you really rob the entire community or something.
Because the main thing, the most dangerous thing, I think, for the hood or whatever, is the hopelessness. Because once you teach a whole generation of kids that there's not even a reason to try, that the difference between selling drugs and getting a job or staying on the block all day or really trying to do something to yourself, it doesn't matter because your life ain't worth shit and this is all hopeless. That's the scariest thing, that a whole community is going to accept that. And when you see somebody like Pop Smoke become so successful and then still get killed over nothing, I can't help but think that some significant percentage of the kids who worshiped him get that further engraved in their brain. Like, oh, there is not a lot else to life besides this gangbanging shit. And that even if I did make it out, or even if I did manage to get that 1 in a million luck of becoming a successful rapper, that they're still gonna take me out of this world for my fucking watch.
And bro, that's how I feel. Even like working with No Jumper, bro, is like my brother gets out of prison and you guys hire him here. Like, you know how dope that is. Like, y'all stop so much shit that Kiki can be doing right now too. And you know, like you were saying too, with the trauma and shit. My house got shot up 24 times. My best friend got killed on my porch. I had to go to sleep in that same house the same night. And you can imagine the type of things that was going through my head. My uncle telling me, oh, this is your fault. You be hanging around and have people hanging around. And then when you figure out why that happened, you know what I'm saying? It's just like pointless. He just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. Right. And when you see that mentally and shit like that, bro, it's a lot of shit that don't bother you as much. And when you see it happen over and over and over and over again, even like recently, one of my homies called me, he's like, hey, what's the call house just got hit up? I was like, my niggas is 30 now. Why is we still, you know what I'm saying? But I can't, you know, I was blessed to be able to travel and, you know what I'm saying, make careers and make hustles out of myself that my homies can't. And I can't sit there and act like, you know, like, oh, I can sit there and say, well, that's bad to do that shit. It's not bad, you know what I mean? People don't have opportunities and shit too, so it's up to people like us to put that out there and let people know, you know what I'm saying? A nigga told me the other day, like, damn, I never thought like street niggas should be doing podcasts. Like, you make it cool. I want to start a podcast now. I'm like, shit, I'm doing my part for my community, for niggas that look like me and that grew up like me.
Framing it in terms of good and bad doesn't work. You have to frame it in terms of what works and what doesn't. And we have to define for people what the definition of it working is and what the definition of it not working is, right? The best thing about human beings is also the worst thing about human beings is that we can adapt and get used to anything. So that makes us very resilient in terms of how we're going to do stuff, both environmentally and physically, but it also means that something can become static and habit for a long period of time, and we can adjust to it. So you talk to somebody, you go, hey, well, what do you want? Like what do you want? Because there's a way to get what you want. If what you want to do is to have a home, have a car, have a good family, and then die a grandfather, well, there's a way to do that. If what you want to do is ride it till the wheels fall off, throw caution to the wind and do that, well, there's a way to do that too. The question is, at what point do you decide what that is for you? What works for you? I'm not going to tell you what's a good life to lead, and I'm not going to tell you what's a bad life to lead. I can't do that, because to do that, to me, is minimizing the situation that you grew up in. I can't say that to you. I can't say this is the right choice, this is the wrong choice. I can tell you this is a choice for longevity and prosperity, and this is a choice that is counter to that, right? And that is empirical. We know that. We've seen that. Tony dies at the end of at the end of Scarface. 10 out of 10 times. Don't matter how you watch, it's gonna end up the same. So the reality is, if that's kind of where you are, then that's kind of where you are. But you have to show the other side of it. You have to make that accessible. The other side of it, hey, this is working for me. Hey, I'm good. I'm not corny. I'm not lame. I'm not this. I'm not that. And you don't have to take these chances anymore. And there is a way to that. But you can't do it by vilifying someone who has no choice but to live in the circumstances that they were born in and to figure out a way to live. Just got to give better options. That shout out to Big U. Big U's, the name of Big U's platform or the name of his deal is developing options. That's the realest shit, developing options. Like adding options to the table. You know what I mean? It's a big deal.
I'm never surprised when I see somebody, you know, who is like in the streets or whatever, and now they're 35 and they just want to live a good, safe, clean life. They got a family, etc. You know, at 35, it doesn't surprise me. But when you meet a young dude who's like 19 and he already like has that vision for himself that he wants to have a career and he wants to build his way up and he wants to really have something, build something for his family, maybe it's a selection bias because so many of the people that were around in terms of the rap shit are the people who have these dreams that they're gonna like sell Percocets until their rap career becomes this big thing.
I was about to say that it happens every day. You know, kids make decisions to go to college. They make decisions to be pharmacists. They make decisions to, you know, sell. My little cousin, 18, is like, I don't want to go to college. I want to go ahead and start my business and, you know, sell audio visual equipment so he could drive down the street and knock people pictures off their walls and all of that. So it, you know, it just depends. But the reality is that sometimes it becomes about what it is that, to your point earlier, like what it is that we highlight and what we show and what we glorify and what we talk about, you know? And to be honest with you, more people with the internet, more people have choices than ever before.
Right.
You know, people are understanding that you can get into other things other than what's right in front of you. The internet homogenizes the human experience to a degree, you know?
But like the most gangster shit will always be the most eye-catching shit. At least in terms of rap, it's so goddamn easy for us to pay attention to who I smoke and you know, all that other crazy ass shit. It's just that's where your eyes go. You wonder how much good shit that isn't eye-catching enough you sort of miss out on. And yeah, when we say it like that, when I think about you, I'm like, Van is a guy who comes from whatever upbringing and at a certain point decided that he wanted to make it and he was really just going to do it and not in a entertainer. Well, you became an entertainer or whatever, but I don't think you thought that you were going to necessarily be on camera or that you were going to be the star of the show or whatever. But I mean, it's interesting to me because I don't really feel like I meet enough Van Lathans in terms of young people, because if you have your head on your shoulders and you're really dead set on making a good life for yourself, does that sound like a hot up and coming rapper?
No.
Not
Well,
as much, you know?
they all want to make they all want to make something out of themselves.
Right.
They
They just have
all
a
want
different dream.
It's a different way. See me, and that's kind of an interesting thing. That's why I gravitated to Kanye so much, is because I had an epiphany one day that a lot of the rappers that I listened to were insulting me. You know, so I'm listening to the rap and it's like, if you ain't a thug, you ain't shit. If you ain't a soldier, you ain't shit. And I'm like, God damn, that makes it hard to do your history homework. You know what I'm saying? Like, all of y'all niggas sending birds down south. Like,
Right.
it got to be somebody who ain't, right? And when Ye came around and he was like, yo, man, these double shifts at the Gap is killing me. I was like, me too.
Right.
I was like, the college dropout. I'm like, oh shit, me too. Look, there he is. Like, there it is. And since then, you know, rap has gone to different places. You got all kinds of guys talking about different experiences. But the reality is, even in that struggle, even if you're not living that lifestyle, you understand what they talking about, which is the harder thing to like divorce yourself from. You understand, because essentially when they're telling you about how bad things are, they're essentially giving you a sermon or a dissertation of what it is that they're overcome and what will happen if you threaten what they already have. And people feel that way. People feel like, hey, fuck with me and mine, this is what happens. My dad feels that way.
Straight up, me too.
Like fuck with me and mine, this is what's gonna happen. Don't care who you are. Dude came to our house, our door one night. It was late at night. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. Came to the house like, yo, these guys are behind me. Like, do me a favor and call the police. My dad was like, you know what you need to do? You need to go to the Circle K over here and use the payphone. Because if these niggas run up here, like my family, whatever, the guy goes, fuck you, I ain't going to no payphone. My dad goes, oh, okay, pull it out on him. You know what I'm saying? Like, no.
It's just a random guy who stopped by.
Random
the house
guy.
saying that
In the
random
middle-
guys were
so
going to kill
in
him.
the middle of the night, General Jackson, Gardier Lane, Baton Rouge. The guy's knocking on the door. Boom, 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 boom. I'm on the couch, sleep. I wake up. Dude's like, oh shit, man, do me a favor, call the police. Niggas is after me, My dad comes in, because I was too afraid to answer the door. My dad comes in. He has it on him when he comes to the door, right? Big 357 Magnum. And he goes, and the dude's like, yo, will you call the police for me? Will you call the police? My dad's like, no, I'm not doing nothing. Take that away from my door. Dude is like, nah, man, so fuck all that. Like seriously. Man. Dude's like, take it away from my door. Dude, like, my father goes, look. And he pulled the gun out on him. Dude ran.
Did that strike you as heartless as a kid? Did you understand?
It didn't strike me as heartless. The only thing that did kind of fuck with me a little bit is he ran a couple of houses down and a white dude called the cops for him and stood out there and waited with him while the cops came.
Wow.
And when I saw him standing out there, I was thinking, damn. But once again, my pops had seen too much. He wasn't going for it.
Do you think that was your dad choosing self-preservation over doing the right thing?
It was absolutely him doing that.
I also don't know that I consider taking him into your house the right thing, because I honestly think you're introducing so much risk and danger into the situation right there. That guy could be a fucking crackhead. He could have just killed 5 people. You really don't know what's going to happen.
Or the guy could have shot the house up.
You know?
Or they could have if they were right behind him, right on him, as he said, they could have been coming up. They could have peeled up the block at any time. And now they open fire on him for whatever was. I don't know if they were strapped. I don't know what's going on, but for whatever that was going on. But my dad's like, I don't want to be no part of it. I don't want to have no part of it. My son is asleep on the couch. So he told him to leave.
Where you're from, how do you think about it when you think about that Young Boy is the biggest rapper from the area you're from?
I think it makes sense.
Right.
I think it makes sense. I think him and Fredo, I think they are Baton Rouge. And Boosie was that before. But I think I think it makes sense. I think I look at those guys and I see Baton Rouge on them. Even the way they talk, in their demeanor, kind of how they came up, like the look in their eyes, and kind of how things exist where I'm from. It makes sense.
But do you what do you think that you would have thought of that shit if you were 17? And do you think that would have ultimately made you less likely to live a happy, long, successful life?
Thought of what shit?
the music, but less the music and more so like kind of the ethos that is being put out by somebody like Youngboy or Fredo, where it's like very, and it's not like there weren't rappers at that time saying the same thing, but it seems to me that Youngboy is the #1 rapper in the world, basically, based on like, YouTube streams and shit like that. Like, it seems kind of unique that he's had this cloud of extreme violence around him, and he's that big. And a lot of his music, if you were a young kid and you listen to it, you might take it as like almost literal directions on how, like, they love him for a lot of stuff besides the violence, because I think Youngboy is a big part of why he's so big is just because of his emotional status, the fact that he's like really willing to just lay it all out there. Yes, he does act like a super thug, but he also will really act in a way that is very far from that. And I think that is, it's kind of hard for me to make sense of that when I think about just how I would view that if I was a young kid coming up with that.
He's a product of his environment, bro. Like, he's literally telling you he's going through pain. He's having problems with niggas in the streets. And when you grow up in the hood, that's what you really go through.
But you can only be a product of your environment so long. I feel like he's so big that he is now affecting and impacting his environment through his words, his music, right?
When he goes home, bro, that shit is not off. It don't matter how big he is. He goes to his neighborhood, he's still a target. He's still whatever. If YG goes to his neighborhood, it doesn't matter how much money he has. It doesn't matter how much that he's seen. You put it right back in there because you're the poster boy now for this whole community of niggas that's doing all of this bullshit in the streets.
It's even not. You're right there, but it's always with you. So when you're born, to a certain point, you learn, and then maturing is actually about unlearning. Because even like what it is that you eat and how it is that you are, like your parents give you your diet. Your parents give you your religion. Your parents give you your ethics. And then you go up and you see the world for what it is for yourself, and then you have to unlearn that. How old is Youngboy?
21 or 22.
So the reality is that the process by which it would take for him to reevaluate what he thinks for his life, and I'm not speaking for the brother, I've never met him, don't know him, would take a while, especially if he made it to where he is being exactly how he is. So it's just a second. And when I was coming up in Baton Rouge, I mean, we had rappers, we had none as big as the guys right now. We had Young Bleed,
Soulja Slim.
But that's New Orleans. But we had Young Bleed, we had CeeLo, we had the concentration camp. We had a lot of guys that were doing it, and we wanted to be those guys. I mean, it was the same thing. It's just what happened was P came through, and then a little bit after P, Baby and them came through, and they broke the state as far as hip hop is concerned. They got us out there as far as that was, and then but it would have been the same thing. Like I just said a second ago, it was the Hot Boys, it was Wayne, it was Young Bleed, it was MC Nero, it was all of those guys, right? All of those guys, and they was talking the shit that we was used to. When Bout It hit, bro, that was like that's a anthem for the way the whole state felt. If you go back and watch the video, just the feeling, like you can smell the reality in it.
The basketball court one, right?
What you talking about?
Is the Bout It video the one that was on the basketball court?
It's him in the project.
Oh, that's a different one then?
Yeah, I mean,
Make him say was the one on the basketball court.
Oh, that was the basketball court. That's totally different. That was when they had that was when they had made it. You know what I'm saying?
That was the shiniest video of all time.
Right. That was
with the tanks and shit.
With the tanks. That
on
was
the basketball court.
That's hard too though. But that was the whole shit. But it is what it is. Everybody got a different journey. We just got to make sure that people got the right options and they got the right choices to make. That those choices are available to them. And you do what you can.
Yeah, definitely. The Youngboy thing though is kind of fascinating because he was in the position where he knew he was on probation, he knew he couldn't be having guns, and he still got caught up for basically holding guns. And they ended up getting the memory card from the filmer or whatever, and they ended up seeing him with all these guns from there. But that very much, and
how does he get rid of the guns though? They killing members. They shooting each other. How does he get rid of the guns?
But he clearly has enough money to just hire security, not have to ever touch a gun again in his life. And that's like his brother has gone on record as saying we get him security, and he doesn't want to use security. He doesn't want to play by the rules, regardless of how obvious it is that he needs to play by the rules to not end up in jail.
But look at the ethos,
and now
like you said.
He's looking at 5-6 plus years.
But you said the ethos of it, the image, like we look down on niggas who get security in this, even though it's not right. But like there's certain rappers that there's a couple rappers, once they get robbed, you like, oh, he ain't about to do nothing about it, your mind already goes to this guy is this way. Something's going to happen if something happens to this guy. So when you see a rapper get robbed, in your mind, you like, I don't even listen to a nigga no more because everything that he done spoke about in my mind now was erased. So these kids is looking at young boy like, you're this. Or somebody may say Lil Reese is the Grim Reaper. You know what I mean? And if he does something that goes against that, people are going to look at him and everything that he says or ever did, it goes out the window. So security for a nigga like young boy, for his fans, it don't make sense.
If there was one message that I could give to rappers, please get security.
Yes.
There is nothing soft about safety. What the fuck are we talking about? What's soft about safety? You know what I'm saying? You walk in some place, and if you know people, if you got enemies or you got, like, what's soft about safety? Get some security. What good is the fucking chain around your corpse? What the fuck are you talking about? Man, look, I don't get the whole shit. I never had to. Like, I don't understand that. Like, look, I know, bruh, I believe it. If you tell me you tough, I believe you. I'm like, all right, cool. Turn the game on. Let's play. You know what I'm saying?
It took me a long time in my life to realize that it was just totally okay to just be a pussy and just admit.
No,
use
what's
a bitch.
pussy? Hold on. What's pussy? Hold on for a second though, because I gotta understand. Because we gotta define pussy, right?
Right.
What's pussy about having security? Is the president pussy? Hold on for a second. I'm just asking you. Is the president pussy? So you go swim at a pool that doesn't have a lifeguard. Is that pussy? Is it pussy to swim at a pool with a lifeguard? Is it pussy? Is it pussy to be safe?
I just mean
Is
in
it
the
pussy?
sense that
Like what do we do? Is a seatbelt pussy?
as
Where
a
does
young
it stop?
guy, it seemed like such a big deal to me to basically be able to fight. And
That's
as I
different.
got older, it just kind of became like,
No.
why would I? But I guess
bro,
like having a gun is like a big part of that over time. That doesn't seem like it matters. But when you're in high school, being able to fight seems like it matters a lot more.
But that's just standing up for yourself as a man.
Yeah.
You don't have to gangbang or do anything for. And I tell people all the time, like somebody like a lot of incidents that have been happening, right? They'll get mad at Adam, and I'll be right here with them, and I'll be like, nigga, why don't you have that same energy for me? I don't care if you're from a street or whatever situation is. As a man, you're supposed to stand up for yourself. You don't have to be afraid to fight or anything like that. Motherfucking soldiers went out to battle, didn't have no choice and shit, put their lives on the line for this country, was little ass kids and shit like that. Like, nah, you don't have to do that shit. And like you said about the security thing, bro, the number one thing people glorify is you can't come back to your hood. You know what I'm saying? Look at Dirk. You can't come back to your hood, huh? Like, that's how niggas talk. Niggas say rappers and shit now be like, oh, you can't. Oh, he don't go to his block no more. I done heard this shit about me before. Oh, that nigga, he's doing this now, or he's doing this now. And I've been intrigued, and I've been back to the hood and did stupid shit that could have got me locked away trying to get justification from these type of niggas. You know what I'm saying?
Look, here's the thing. Now, I hear you 1,000%. Look, man, this shit is really stupid. Like, so for me, it doesn't even matter if you can fight. It just matters that you fight.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter if you can fight.
right.
Like my uncle told me one time, was like, yo, you know, somebody fucking with you, just make them remember you. Just let them know. He was like, yo, just let them know you're not the one to fuck with. Just make them remember you.
But that advice seems a lot more pragmatic when you are not in an environment where somebody will shoot you.
Well, here's the thing. You have no control over that. So at a certain point, you have to understand, number one, who you fucking with, and you have to set limits and boundaries for yourself. So it could have happened. It's just luck if it didn't happen. And to a degree, it's just an incident when it does. So there's no way to know. Like everybody that's been in a certain, that grew up in a certain way has fought with dudes that 2 years later, they put some work in and you was like, damn. Like you had a fight with somebody and then 2 years later, hey, you hear what happened to what's his face? It was like got 90 years for killing, and you like shit. So I mean, that is what it is.
And even when I look back on my, high school career, I might be saying like it's okay to be a pussy now. But every time I fought somebody in high school, every time I stood up for myself, even if I lost a fight, all of those are actually really important moments in terms of like letting your peers know that they can't fuck with you, or at least that you're down to fight back.
You didn't die.
And and you know, it's important for your own mind state too, because
you didn't die.
I think about a lot of fights I had when I was a kid that, like, you know, basically turned into like weird rolling around on the ground, biting and hair pulling matches. But I mean, that's important to let everybody else in school know that they
didn't
can't
fuck
just
with you
pick
after
on you.
that.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people, these school shooters and a lot of these people that snap in life, is because they're taught, look the other way, don't do this and do that, and then mentally they can't take this shit no more. One day they just fucking snap.
Yeah, but
if they started knuckling up early and start being men at the end of the day, a lot of this shit wouldn't happen no more.
I think a lot of those school shooters, they're taught their whole life that they have to be tough, and then they're not. They're taught their whole life that life is all about fucking bad bitches, and then at some point you realize, oh, I'm never going to get any pussy, especially not anything that looks like the girls on the billboards. And then at some point, these guys are being fed all these messages about what the good life is. They realize that there's no possible way that they're going to get anywhere near that. And at some point, they're like, well, fuck this world. I'm going to just take as many people out on the way out as possible.
But, bro, if I come here and I push you right now and you don't do nothing, that's sitting there telling the whole world that you can be pushed. And somebody else comes and push you, and somebody else comes push you, and that shit keeps happening. Mentally, my nigga, you're going to react the way that you never reacted before if you don't know how to handle that situation. If somebody comes here and push you, you knock them the fuck out, no one's going to come in here trying to fight you again, bro. And that's what kids don't, like, that's what the problem is now, bro, is that motherfuckers are so, oh, you should just turn the other cheek. No, don't turn the other cheek. That shit builds character. Get your eye, get socked in the eye, get punched in the mouth, sock somebody, my nigga. If somebody bothers you, that's how the world works. Because if not, whether it's business, whether it's streets, people are going to walk all over if you don't stand up for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, the main thing is, however you do it, just don't allow yourself to be exploited or used by anyone. However you do it, you know, whatever it is that you do. People have different ways they fight different battles. I used to know dudes who would do it with jokes. People would be straight up, hard up, ready to fight them. Step, come on, and they just cut them down with jokes. And, you know, everybody has a different way, but the reality is that it's just a lot of this stuff is just getting. The internet has given people the ability to build themselves and build a persona that kind of like drains their humanity from them. So you don't really know who the actual person is. Now, I think about this with like old dudes that still talking shit, you know, and still doing stuff like that. Now, like, we got grandfathers and we got like uncles and people that are still doing stuff like on the internet, and everybody can do whatever they want to do. But the reality is, come on, man. Like, let go of the identity and just like be a person for a while, you know? And that's what used to happen, because you used to be able to detach from your fame. You would only pop up on the MTV Rock and Jock shit after your rap career was over. You would only pop up. But now you have to maintain this stuff in perpetuity, and it's just a lot of work.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody the other day who was like, you know, Metallica used to like be on tour and then they'd be working at pizza places in between.
Yeah.
And that was considered normal. Not like most famous metal band in the world, but it was all, and growing up, honestly, like being into all these hardcore and punk bands and stuff, it was like that. Like the singer of the most popular band in that world would be working at fucking Friendlies on the weekend, and it wasn't really considered to be all that like out of the ordinary. The thing I think in general that happens now is all these young, broke, normal ass people decide that they need to basically measure up to celebrities. So they think you need to wear a new outfit every day. They think that it's normal for you to be buying designer and stuff, even if you're not even close to that fucking income bracket. They think that, you know, girls think they need to look like fucking Kylie Jenner or whatever girl just got a BBL on the timeline. It's like there's no divide between what a normal person's life should be like and what a celebrity's life should look like. So you just have all these kids with this super warped perspective of what they're trying to live up to.
Man,
Bars.
bruh, real shit. Fuck them fucking watches and fuck all of that shit.
You got a nice watch, though. That thing's staring back at me.
They gave it to me. Shout out to Tally and Twine.
I don't know how nice or expensive it is, but it looks crazy.
And
You make me feel bad. Hold
shout
on.
out to Tally and Twine. Nigga, that's a Rolex. Oh, look at this nigga. You just want people to look at your watch. Show everybody the
No,
watch.
I don't want to see
Show everybody the watch.
I worked hard for that watch.
Because you know,
man.
goddamn right, that
I
watch
worked
look
hard.
better than this. But the Tally and Twine, black owned. So, but my saying is like, just be you. Because that to be at the end of the day, that's what it takes the most strength to do. It takes the most strength, and if you really pay attention to it, the people who really win in life are the people who are unapologetically themselves.
Right.
And that don't mean you're gonna be perfect. If you want the watch, go get the watch. If you want the ass, go buy the ass. If you want whatever it is, go buy it. But do it because you want to do it. Do it because it's what you want.
Right.
Don't do it because you feel like you have to live up to something else. Right now, I got 2010 Honda Accord Cross Tour. My shit got 156,000 miles on it. Earlier in the pandemic, I went to go get this like big Mercedes. I was gonna get the big Mercedes truck. We making money. We've been making money. I wanted to get the truck. I'm driving this shit around. I could pay for it cash. Like I'm driving this shit around. I'm doing the whole deal. And I get to the point and I go, I like my car. That car meant something to me. Like it's like a thing. I got memories to it. I'm not ready to give it up yet. And who the fuck do I need to impress?
Bars.
And how many people are ever going to even see your car unless you post a fire Instagram picture in front of it?
Well, I can pull up to Beauty and Essex and Stun, or I can pull up to any of these other places and I could go to some place and have them put my shit in the front. But
it's funny you said that's the last place I seen you too.
Beauty and Essex, yeah. Shout out, like I could do, but for what? So what? That's not me. That's not my thing. I'm the fucking egghead. So what the fuck do I need that for?
As soon as you start playing those games, like, you know, as soon as I really got like a big ass check, I got a grill. My girl bought me a chain for my birthday. It took me like a week or two to be like, I'm never wearing this again. I'm never wearing either of these things again. This is not me. I feel crazy in this shit.
I might get a chain because I have a friend that does like stupid dope ass like design. And he came up with this design where he took the Harriet Tubman coin and he put it in the middle. I might get that, but you know,
that's because you want it though.
It's because I want it.
But you're gonna frequently get mistaken for a rapper, don't you think?
No. People know.
People are gonna see the chain. I see a chain, and I almost like don't even look at the face. I start trying to figure out what the chain says, like what rap crew he's with before I even.
I'm way too polite. To people walk by me. Hey, what's up, sir? How are you? It's a beautiful day.
But when you go out your house to go grab a slice of pizza in the middle of the night, you gonna keep the chain on?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't know what the etiquette. You a chain ass nigga. What's the etiquette? Like what's the?
You got three of them on right now.
What's the etiquette? Like what's the etiquette? Like when do you wear the chains? Like do you shower with the chains on?
Every single chain,
have before,
even when
but no.
I'm in the house, right?
You don't.
No, you don't go to the grocery store to chains or nothing. No.
So what's a chain level event?
I mean, like if you go to Beauty and Essex. If you go to some place that's like a lot of people are going to be at social gatherings, that's really it.
The mall?
Only if you're going to go to a social gathering after.
So if you're just going to the mall regular,
Nah, you don't
Forever
wear
21
chains.
with your girl, don't get it.
Forever, no, hell no. Hell no.
Right.
Basketball
that.
shorts, t-shirt, hat,
chilling.
pushing.
Chilling.
Flip-flops. Yeah.
I wonder though, because when I had a chain for a very brief period of time, and I've been like taught by rap music that you don't tuck your chain in over my life. And during the brief period of time where I was wearing a chain, I frequently would think like, oh, I'm going to 7-Eleven, I'm gonna chuck my chain. And like that, I'm like, that feels kind of crazy that like I only had this thing for a couple weeks and I'm already like, you know, why do I want to be showing this off in 7-Eleven to the fucking random ass dude who works there and the one girl buying a lemonade? Like, I don't care what they think of me.
But growing up though, those is like hood trophies and shit. Cause like I couldn't wait to buy a Rolex. I always wanted one. I was just like, fuck, I'm going to fucking grind hard so I can buy a fucking Rolex or get a certain chain. Like those are hood trophies. Like, you know what I'm saying? The guys in your neighborhood that you idolized as a kid, they have a nice BMW. They come and do that. Like if you watch Paid in Full, look at Ace. He looked at fucking Mitch. He got the new shit. Everybody got that. That's what you inspire to be like. And that, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
I always really liked rap music, but for some reason in my head, I never really thought like, oh, I'm going to have all the things that they have.
Right, because you couldn't see the time in life that where you would be able to mimic the rappers.
All I ever really wanted was like to have enough money that I didn't have to have a job or like do anything that anybody didn't want, like told me to do, you know?
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. As a kid though, that really was it. Like in my mind, like when I like dropped out of college and like fucking moved to New York and stuff, my mind was really on like, how can I figure out how to make $100,000 a year without having to do a lot of shit that I don't want to do?
See?
It was a lot harder than I thought.
Yeah,
Because you end up having to do a lot of shit.
It's a trade-off,
regardless.
though.
Yeah. And at some point you get addicted to working and being productive, and that makes it so it's like, oh, you were fighting to just have a lot of free time, and now you don't even want free time.
Let me ask you something. How much Like
money do you make?
No. Money. How much like fucking stock do you put into the fact that you are a quote unquote boss?
I try to ignore it. I mean, I try to like figure out how to be a good boss, but I also like don't really want to like do all the things that you get to do as a boss. You know, I don't want to like be screaming and mad at my employees and constantly telling them like you gotta do that. I don't want to be. I'm saying you have to do some percentage of that.
You do have to do that.
You have to, because people fuck up constantly, and I'm the fucking only person at times who really cares about the details. But yeah, I mean, I don't like want to walk around feeling like that, but you have to. Like, you really just kind of have to acknowledge that, because otherwise, who else is gonna care about shit the way that I care about shit? Every last fucking detail. Every single little tiny detail I consider part of how people are going to view me, even if it's like the business account tweeting something. If there's a typo, this to me, like the person who posted it doesn't really have to deal with that besides me yelling at them.
Yeah, because if the shit falls, it's all going to be on Adam.
Or if there's a typo, I'm going to look like I'm the one who doesn't know which there to use.
I remember learning that when I was working at Best Buy in college. Like the sales managers and the managers of the store and all of these people who were like going up the Best Buy ladder, they would yell at me about shit, or they would say shit to me, and I'd be like, yo, you know I don't give a fuck, right? Like, you know I don't care.
Right.
So I was a good salesman, so I was a really good salesman, so we would have these conversations, but like, man, you gotta be, you realize that like, this is for extra money. Like, this is so I can go like out of town and play Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Like, this is like, I don't fucking care. But this was their thing. This was their life. They wanted to, and your performance basically was their performance. And it's just different. But it's just so much boss talk now, and so much, all of this stuff. Obviously, people talk about ownership and all of that. I just wonder if you take a great deal of pride in all of that stuff.
I mean, I'm definitely proud of, starting my own business and having it work out and everything.
It's an amazing thing.
But I try not to like fetishize it in the way of, I hate people who talk about like, oh, I'm a boss. Like, no offense to Dame Dash, but he's had some pretty like epic rants about this that are basically like, somebody will say something about him and he's like, I'm a boss. You work for so-and-so. You can't even, you're not building ownership in this thing or whatever. It's like, bro, not everybody is meant to fucking have ownership in, like there's a lot to be said for being a good employee or a good worker. There just can't be 5 million fucking, bosses.
I will say something about Dame though. When Dame does it, I think Dame is equating that to freedom. Dame is just, to me, the reason why Dame is an inspirational guy to me, is because Dame is just free. Like Dame is one of the freest people I've ever known. And man, people think freedom is easy. It's not. It's hard. It's hard to be as free as Dame Dash is. And so when Dame is talking about, Dame says it, and it feels like Dame is using it as status. It feels like Dame is using it to look down on somebody else. But what he's really saying is, no one tells me what I can do, and I am going to make sure that the people around me have a similar outlook so that no one tells them what they can do. Dame is like, yo, if I want to do a cool art thing, I do a cool art thing. Yo, if I want to do a cool music thing, I do a cool music thing. If I want to do oil, if I want to do this, I want to do that. I don't think he's ever talking down. And somebody that has that really feels that way, they don't understand why you don't feel that way too. They just don't get why you would be okay clocking in and out, because they feel like, hey, somebody's telling you where you can go and what you can do. And he always asks them, he's like, yo, you like that? And the question is, yeah, some people actually do. Some people don't care. But what he's talking about is just freedom sometimes, I think.
But once you've seen both sides of the coin, like from my perspective, if you work in media and you make $100,000 to $200,000 a year, and if the business goes to shit, you don't have to deal with that. And if you do a really good job, you can go to a competitor and say, hey, give me more money, and they'll hire you. And that's a very great position to be in from my perspective, given that most of those people who are in that position couldn't just go and start their own fucking media company. Most of those people are making more money working for someone else. I don't think working for someone else you should never use that against somebody as a bad thing, because of the fact that if you are a boss, you're not really a boss unless you have a whole bunch of people working for you. You're not really an entrepreneur unless you've created a bunch of jobs for people. So to then shit on people who just have a job doesn't really make any sense. They just have a boss who's different than you.
Bro, I heard when I was watching you and Joe Budden's interview, he said that people don't know what the fuck they want, and they really don't though. You could give somebody a position and they will bitch about freedom and say whatever the shit, and then they get in that position and they're like, I don't like this, or it is what it is. Like, nah, that shit's done. People don't know what the fuck they want, bro.
I see people say that shit all the time about the podcast, about like, oh, if you take this person off, it's going to be fucked. Oh, if you do this, whatever. It's like you have to be able to see the criticism and the advice and also know that some percentage of the audience doesn't really mean what they're actually saying. Like Joe Budden saying that he thought they should serve breakfast all day and then he never got it. I mean, that's why McDonald's never did it for all those years, is because they knew.
That's how I could tell Joe don't really have a fat soul. Because Joe, that's how I could tell. Joe posts a lot of food, and so sometimes I'll be thinking, you know, Joe is like me in that he has a fat soul. There might be a fat boy in here. The minute they put that all day breakfast up there,
you were on it.
6:30. Give me 2 McGriddles, 5 hash browns. Come on, we out here.
I must not have a fat soul because I never touched it. But I also feel like I'm
I
at
eat
the
that shit
point.
all day.
I'm at the point in my life where
that.
I look at McDonald's like, yeah, that's what I used to eat. I don't want to fucking eat McDonald's
I
anymore.
haven't eaten there in so long.
Yeah.
But when you do, when you do eat there for whatever reason, you'll be like, I haven't eaten there in so long. But when you do fuck with it, you're like, it is slightly lit.
Oh, hell yeah. I could go to Big Mac right now and
Yeah.
love it. But reality is, if I eat that salad in there, I'm going to feel a lot lighter. I'm going to feel a lot better. I'm going to fucking look a lot better over the long term.
Very true.
My problem for me right now, this is where I'm at in my weight loss journey. I want to share this. Me and you are brothers in the weight loss journey. AD has not really admitted to himself that he is a recovering, fucking Cheez-It junkie or whatever it is. I don't know. What's your drug of choice
Right now,
in terms of food?
Golden Oreos, man.
That's what's keeping you chubby?
my
I love
God.
it.
Yeah,
My girl had a
good.
box of those in the crib, and it was fucking me up, too.
Bro, my son is addicted to that shit now, too.
See, that's what's got me fucked up now is, okay, before the pandemic, I had at least a year or so there where I ate almost perfectly, worked out almost every day, and basically was doing extra cardio sessions. I got to the best shape of my entire life. Then the pandemic hits, I get all fucked up. But now, like during that time period where I was doing really good, my girl was also on the same shit, and she wasn't eating bad at all. Now, my girl's attitude is different because she, for whatever reason, she's decided that she thinks that she's in a better mental state when she snacks a little bit and she has the food around and she can choose to eat a little bit of it. But as a result, I now live in a home where there are pita chips, there are delicious cookies, there are, like you said, the fucking Oreos with the yellow, whatever they're called, the cream Oreos. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm trying to learn how to live my life and not become a fat ass, even though my girl has all these delicious fucking snacks there all night, every night.
And see, bro, that's what alcohol and like on Friday streams when I sit here and we just get fucking high.
That's the root of all evil.
That's evil. And you know, when you go to the clubs and shit and bro, the best thing to do at 3-4 in the morning is stop at fucking Jack in the Box.
You know how bad what you're doing is, but yeah.
Because it's all a fucking slippery slope, because then you're not sleeping as good and you eating. Man, the worst thing that happened to me in the pandemic is there's a guy who's a fan of the podcast. He's a great dude. He goes, yo, I work at Kellogg's. And I was like, yeah, we seen you some product. I'm like, yeah, it's dope, man. He's like, what do you like? He goes, what do you like? I was like, we like Cheez-Its. We fuck with Pop-Tarts. We fuck with different things like that. I remember getting a call from a dude that was outside of the thing. It was like, do you have a pallet? And I was like, why would I need a pallet? It was like, because you have a delivery from Kellogg's. The nigga sent a whole plant. When I tell you, he sent like, when I tell you it was like 30, I ended up donating a lot of the food.
I would too. Yeah.
Be like, I ended up donating, like, he sent a whole, but if you sitting there and there are Pringles in there, and you think to yourself, I could be eating Pringles? It's like a blowjob. Think about it.
Yeah.
So it's really like a blowjob. Think about it. If the worst thing you can do is have the thought that I could be getting my dick sucked right now. Because if you have that thought and it's available, you're going to go and get your dick sucked. That's like Pringles. The reality is that if Pringles are there and you could be eating Pringles, it takes a Herculean effort not to eat them. And I failed. Failed to the tune of like 25 pounds. I was eating on that shit. My girl would be looking at me like, why are you eating it? I'd be like, get off me, because it's there. That's the reason why I'm eating it. So it's just hard.
And that's what I hate, knowing that about myself, is that during that year where we didn't have any snacks in the house, it was really easy for me to be really, really strict. I'm like a heroin addict who if they see heroin is going to do the heroin, but as long as you don't see any heroin, then you're good. I'm sure a lot of heroin addicts honestly are probably like that, but the problem with food is that everywhere you go, there's food. It's kind of hard to find heroin in comparison, maybe not in Compton, but here at least, I don't know.
And then like with the whole Oscar thing, is that everybody just sent you like liquor. Everybody sent, there was always a party. There was always an event. Everyone was so generous and stuff. So it was tough.
I think I'm going to buy a little lock and put it on my girl's snack drawer and just give her the key and just tell her like, girl, don't let me in.
You might break it.
Yeah.
No, really, I might,
do.
yeah. Especially because we do these streams on Friday where we'll be on stream for 8-9 hours listening to their music, smoking hella blunts. I mean, your fucking self-control just kind of dissipates.
How many blunts is hella blunts?
I'm going to say at least 1 an hour for the entirety. And even that makes it sound like nothing. 10 blunts in 9 hours? Hell no, it's way more than that.
It's way more
It's
than
at least
that.
like 15, 16, 17, probably like 20.
I get to a point,
But it's split between like 4 or 5 guys, so it's not that bad, maybe.
yeah, I get to a point of being high where it's like weird fear kicks in every time. Like I can get a little high.
I used to be like that.
You
I
gotta
get
just
to
do it more.
Just
I told my girl that the other day. She's like, last time I got high, I got way too high. I haven't smoked weed since. I'm like, it's like a muscle. You got to just
I used
build
to
it
get
up.
super paranoid. Now I go to sleep, and now I don't go to sleep.
Ever.
No, I'm talking about off the weed.
Oh, yeah. It's not hitting you as hard. A lot of people have a story, though, about how they didn't smoke weed for a period of time or they got way too high one time and then that just stopped them. Honestly, weed is that kind of thing, though, where it's like sometimes you just have to just get high as fuck over and over to just smash through your tolerance. I'm at that point where now I could eat edibles right now and just do a podcast and be whatever.
See, I don't like the edibles. I like mushrooms now.
Yeah, that's some freak shit.
microdosing.
Yeah, it's cool. I like this shit a lot, actually.
It's good for anxiety.
Yeah.
think?
Maybe that's why I like it.
Mushrooms are too intense. I'll be like, I feel like I'm in a German strip club. I got to pee. Or ask AD. Ask AD some questions. Yeah. Or vice versa.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you got? What I want to know is, for you, like as a rapper, like to me, I look at all of these guys, right, and they're putting all of these songs out and they're doing all of this shit. Like, what is your goal? Like, what's the deal? Do you want to be the biggest rapper in the world? Is there something you want to say? Because a lot of the songs I listen to now, I don't understand what these guys are trying to say anymore. Like, what's your goal of being a rapper? Like, what's the point anymore, bro?
And that was the thing, even like joining with No Jumper and shit too. So I tell people all the time, shout out to Lil Dicky. Lil Dicky hit me up. I did his television show and I fucking went to the premiere. And I went to the premiere and I watched in the movie theater with all of these fucking TV people, all these execs and shit like that. And I watched myself on a goddamn movie screen.
Right.
And see my name on the credits, and then all the fucking FX people come pat you, oh, you're great, pat you on the back and shit too. And I'm just right there at that moment, I was like, I have way more to give than just doing rap. Music and just the rapping and stuff too. And you know, comparisons to me always have been Ice Cube, you know what I mean? Somebody who got into the game and went and did other shit.
Trying to diversify your shit.
Yeah, and you know, like I'm a big fan of fucking Donald Glover, Childish Gambino. I seen him on the stand-up comedy on Netflix. I seen him on the Spider-Man movie. I seen him in the fucking Star Wars movie. I seen him direct and star in Atlanta. I see him drop music, and I was like, you know, I can do all of this shit because I have the personality and I'm talented enough to do that shit.
And I just want you to know that if the more you do in that world, the more you accomplish, the more that I will take credit for it and be like, yes, AD is a big actor. Yes, I brought him on No Jumper. Before that, he was standing on the corner with a glizzy, and now he's a famous actor, and it was all because of me. I'm just warning you.
Yeah. Well, like I said though, bro, and I feel like you put everything together, and that's what I want to be known for, is somebody that came from the hood and did everything that he wanted to do and did it dopely.
Do you think Lil Dicky is hip hop?
Yes, for sure. But
we had a long argument on Clubhouse. Rest in peace, Clubhouse.
Yeah,
it's over?
It's over.
I don't fuck with it no more.
But I talked to him, and he said that his goal was always to have a television show. Like, that was his whole thing of taking rap and getting to where he wanted to get to. And if you look at what all other rappers do, like somebody like Ludacris is like, yeah, your music catalog is amazing, but niggas might remember you more for Fast and Furious.
Lil Dicky is actually one of my very favorite like TMZ success stories.
Why do you consider him that?
Well, for me personally.
But were you just covering him very early on and before he became successful? Or?
So I would say, I can't remember the year, but if I looked at our DMs, I might be able to point to the year. That video he came out with White Dude. You remember that? Y'all never saw that song?
Not the Chris
talking
Brown one? He had
No,
another
no,
one?
no. This is way
Like the
before.
beginning stages.
I
So
don't know if
Lil
I've seen
Dicky had a song called White Dude, and the song is just brilliant because it's like it's triggering, but it's funny because what he's basically talking about is how great it is to be a white dude. You know what I mean? There's like actually a line in the song where he goes, where I eat at when I'm high is what you eat to survive. And with a picture of a KFC or something like that.
Good
So
bar.
he's just talking about like white privilege, but it's a satirical look at it, right? It's not that he's saying it's so dope. It's like he's critiquing it, right? And I thought it was really brilliant. So I was like, I'm going to get this on TMZ. I'm going to get this on TMZ. So I had a friend of mine set up a shot at the Grove with just a rapper that he was managing. And when I got this rapper, because he was a white rapper, I asked him if he had seen the Lil Dicky situation, if he had seen the video. So then we go from his thing to Lil Dicky's thing. Because when I came in the office, I showed Harvey the video, and obviously Harvey loved it. And so then they put Lil Dicky on TMZ Live. And I remember he did TMZ Live from his cubicle at work. He did it, and that was like the first time that he was like on like television or something like that. I don't want to speak for him or anything like that. I don't want Scooter or Dicky to get mad. I don't want to speak for him, but
Young Scooter?
Scooter Braun.
Scooter Braun. But
imagine.
But for me, that was really the first time that I realized, I could put anybody on TV that I want. And I put my homeboys that I knew.
You put me on there.
You was on TV? Yeah.
A couple times.
Yeah, I was like, that's
I
what
heard you suppressed evidence that could have been used against AD.
whatever it is.
Not him. Somebody else did, who no longer works for TMZ.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
I heard that they had content that could have potentially landed AD or some of his associates in jail,
Yes.
and that they did not use it out of respect, which I was like, I did not even know that corporations would ever make a decision like that.
But you know why? That's because he's smart. I'll tell you something else. People don't understand is that AD had a good relationship with the people at the office. So because he had there's something I call an awe factor. So there's two ways that people react to when a story comes in when you're at the office. One is, oh shit, this happened. The other one is, oh man, somebody get on the phone and call so and so and so. And the awe thing, that's the space for you to not get fucked if they like you. So if something happens and they pick up the phone and you pick up the phone and you call, you got two choices. You go, hey, yo, fuck you. I'll give you guys fucking suck. Or you can go, man, this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. If you do the second one, it's going to be better for you in the long run. Now, that doesn't mean that gives them the right to be calling and asking about people's personal business. I'm not over there anymore. They do what they do. But what I'm saying is they liked him, so they treated him well.
I have a question. What was the crux of the Lil Dicky being hip hop argument? Because to me, I'm just kind of used to saying, like, if they're rapping over beats, it's got to be hip hop, right? Like, even if they exist in a world that's way different than what you would traditionally think of as hip hop, it's still basically hip hop.
The line is so fuzzy now because some people say that about Post Malone. They say Post Malone is not a rapper, and it's like, nigga, yes, Post Malone is a fucking rapper.
And there's a shitload of people that we give credit for basically being rappers, like, you know, non-white people who, you know, basically make exactly the same kind of, like, was Juice WRLD a rapper? Like, of course he rapped, but I mean, he made a lot of music that wasn't rapping, and we all still put that in the rap bucket, right?
I mean,
To me, so I actually talked to a couple people about this because I thought that Dicky was hip hop, right?
Right.
To me, hip hop is not anything that's really specific. It's about, are you dope with what it is that you're doing? And if you listen to Dicky rap, he is obviously nice, right?
He's a very talented
Super
rapper,
nice.
but I would also argue you don't need to be dope.
Well, fine.
You just need to be rapping.
You just need to be rapping. Okay, cool. Oh, but if you're rapping about your own experience and what's real to you, the authenticity. But I actually talked to somebody who is incredibly knowledgeable about hip hop, and he said, nah, that's actually not it. And he goes, because there's actually less people that are hip hop than you think there are. It's like hip hop is a culture. Hip hop has to do with knowledge. Hip hop has to do with how much you've done for hip hop. He's like, he told me, he said, Dicky is basically this white dude that taught himself how to rap, and he's really nice at it, but that don't make you hip hop. So I think it could be on either side of it. I looked at it as, yo, if you rapping about putting a controller on your dick and jerking off, and you really did that, well, then you're rapping about your authentic experience, and that's kind of hip hop. That's hip hop.
To me, the only argument against Lil Dicky being a rapper would basically just to be to say he's too white for it to feel like hip hop. But I think if you're going to actually treat hip hop as like a label that really means something, I mean, you're going to have to include the whitest fucking rapper ever.
Do you know what I realized in talking to these guys about hip hop? Is that I don't really know anything about hip hop. It's like talking to these dudes, and this, I didn't have the Lil Dicky conversation with this guy specifically. I had it. This is a different guy that I talked to about this, like Ninth Wonder, right? I had a 2-hour conversation with Ninth Wonder one time. If you talk to Ninth Wonder, you realize you don't know anything about hip hop.
Right.
You have no clue. Like he was able to connect current hip hop all the way back to like Lyndon Baines Johnson and the start of it in the Bronx, and like why all of these things happen, and the building blocks. And when you do it that way, it becomes much harder to exclude people. Some people who've actually contributed to it. But also the standard of it gets raised through the roof. And when these guys are talking about what like Ninth Wonder and Sway and all those, when they're talking about what they consider hip hop, it's like, it's a real cultural sacrifice that you have to make. And I don't think people look at it like that anymore. They think you got a beat, you got some rhymes, now you hip hop. And I think some of the other guys are saying, nah, it's more to it than that.
Come from the struggle, man.
Yeah, it's like the difference between a dunker and a basketball player. They're guys on the internet that make a living on the internet doing nothing but dunking. All they do is dunk. And they are amazing, better than guys in NBA at dunking. But if you put them in a game, they can't score.
Right.
So they're really not a basketball player. They're a dunker. They've been able to do one thing.
But they're still a basketball player.
Kind of.
You know, because to me, it's like if you're going to use that definition of hip hop, it is so vague and so vast that it is kind of almost useless, because at this point it is completely disconnected
Adam
from the
22
root
says
of it.
hip hop is useless.
This guy. The term hip hop is kind of useless because it kind of at this point encompasses so much shit that is so far away from the root of hip hop that you kind of like it. I don't think you get to say hip hop is only this, because as a society we've just gotten used to using the word hip hop for everybody who raps over a beat.
But
right?
he said the basis of where it came from. If you stick to the standards of what hip hop is, then Van is right. Most things that people don't do is hip hop. Hip hop came from the struggle. It came of expressing yourself.
Lil Dicky's rapping over the same beats as Benny the Butcher, and he's rapping arguably as technically well. What is the thing? Like, just because Benny the Butcher is closer to like Mobb Deep than Lil Dicky, I don't really know how that stands.
So this is my thing.
I'm
actually honestly telling you that I'm not really qualified to break it down, and those guys are.
I would agree that I'm not qualified either.
And those guys are. But what I'll tell you is that people are saying that there is a difference. Now, for me, I looked at it on the surface. What I looked at hip hop as was feeling mixed with ability, mixed with just kind of you getting it out there. So I looked at Soulja Boy. Soulja Boy was the most hip hop shit in the world to me.
Agreed.
And the reason why was because that was a kid that just was making shit on his fucking shit, putting it on his MySpace very organically and building an audience. And to me, that seemed like the essence of hip hop, right? And Dickie seemed to be the same thing. If you working in some corporate job somewhere and you rapping, and then you come in there, you beat doors down and you make a name for yourself for whatever reason, to me, I'm looking like, yo, that's hip hop. But people will say that there is a higher standard and that there's a specific cultural definition. And one thing about that, and it gets tricky for me, is people inside of a culture, they do get to define what that culture is. And I think that's something that mainstream America tries to take away from people. If you're inside of whatever culture it might be, if it's Jewish culture, if it's black culture, if it's Hispanic culture, or more specifically like Puerto Rican culture or Dominican culture, they decide what their culture is. And I think sometimes when black people share their culture with America, we get to a point to where America starts saying, no, this is that. And that's the thing that throws people off. So with hip hop, What I learned, and I actually was trying to produce a show on it. You know what I'm saying? If me and Sway and Ninth could ever get that. But what I learned is that people don't know shit about hip hop. If what these two brothers and other people around, and Royce and all of these other guys, because those clubhouse rooms that we were doing had all of these people in it that had dedicated their lives to this, right? That really lived and died with this. I'm a fan of hip hop, but I don't really know shit about it. You know what I mean? Like it's so deep when you start getting into these conversations that I think we take it for granted that people on mics rapping would be that all of this hip hop. And according to their definition, it's not.
I think it does make a lot of sense to me that there has to be a cultural component in it, even though I just basically said that Lil Dicky is hip hop regardless of the cultural component. But basically, when I was, 15 or 16, we would frequently have the conversation of Fred Durst and Kid Rock. They rap, but they're not hip hop. They're not making hip hop music. Now, granted, like Fred Durst probably could make a hip hop record or whatever, and there's certainly songs throughout the Limp Bizkit catalog that basically
Together Now that you'd say
they're basically rap songs. You got Method Man on it.
I wouldn't say it was hip hop; it was a rap song. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would say there are rappers, but it's not hip hop because culturally it doesn't fit into that box, which I totally understand that argument. And it is kind of freaky because when I think about a lot of the stuff that I grew up listening to outside of hip hop, like in metal, there's death metal, there's black metal, there's speed metal, there's grindcore, there's all kinds of, there's hardcore, there's punk, there's pop punk, they're really religious about their genres. Hip hop really has never gotten into that in the sense that, okay, there is horrorcore, there was rap, there's conscious rap, there's gangster rap, but we don't really bother to make those distinctions very often.
And we compare those people to one another, which is something that in these other things they really don't, right? Like the Foo Fighters and
Slayer.
Tool or Slayer. It's not going to be that they're not going to compare those bands, but even though we have distinctions in hip hop amongst those people, we still compare them to one another because the skill that they're exhibiting is something that we feel like is kind of the same.
Comparing Foo Fighters and Slayer is like comparing Young Thug and Jay-Z.
Right.
They're both rappers, clearly, but they are very much competing in different ways where the Young Thug is not thinking about his art in the same way that Benny the Butcher is, even though they could be on the same track.
Well, see, I disagree.
And it's different walks of life.
Well, there's a lot of similarity, but I would argue that comparing them directly side by side, who's the best, it seems like kind of a useless conversation.
You can't compare Butcher and Thug, but I bet you Thug thinks he's the hardest nigga out. Mm-hmm. And so the reason why he thinks that is because he's just listening to how good does my shit sound when I put it down. Like when my shit is on there, how dope is my shit? People fuck with my shit heavy. And Thug might say, people fuck with my shit more than they fuck with Benny, so that means that I'm better than Benny. If you listen to Benny, you know that it's just not too many niggas, period, who rap better than Benny. And that goes for Khan and that goes for Westside too. But when you compare that to other artists who are selling out the ass, they might think, hey, because people fuck with me like this, that means that I'm better than some of these other guys. Now, I'm not saying that they necessarily have made these compositions, but I'm saying hip-hop is so competitive that we compare these guys. It's different than that. Like, I remember I had a 2-hour-long argument about whether or not Smashing Pumpkins was metal.
No.
I think
they're not hard enough.
I think they are. I think Smashing, and I remember, and this is another one when I went on get.
I don't think you'd find a lot of allies on this argument within the metal community.
Not a lot, but
it's rock and roll.
But they have some metal songs.
Probably, yeah.
They have some metal songs.
Yeah.
But see, that's something that never really happens because Smashing Pumpkins is on MTV and Danzig is not.
And almost every metal band that you listen to, every song doesn't sound exactly the same, but they're very, very, very similar. And in that way, rock music is almost more like a craft because to be a rapper, it's like you are this kind of free spirit who gets to float around between producers and you can just make music with whoever. To be a good metal band, it's like mastering this skill that is kind of like passed down through the ages and you all have to be able to like work together to play this music at the same time. And that in itself, I think, drives people towards these specific genres, but also the fact that there are like built-in fan bases for those genres as well that are gonna fuck with you if you make those kind of songs. And there's a big, like I've seen so many bands over the years basically go, because it always happens the same, where a band starts out like very hard. Over time, they grow up, they get a little older, they decide they want to experiment with like clean vocals or more melody, and then their original fan base usually sort of
you were my
ostracizes
dad,
them as they move away from that. But yeah, like rap is very different.
So you don't think that Thug has mastered a skill?
Oh, I think Thug is probably, when I talk about like top 5 or top 10 rappers of all time, to me, Thug is like really probably the only rapper from like the last 10 years that I put in my top 5 or top 10.
You think Young Thug is a top 5 rapper of all time?
I think for me, given that I'm extremely ignorant of like everything pre-Snoop Dogg, I probably would do that. And I realize that might sound horrible to like certain people.
It's your list.
But yeah, like when in terms of my list, and also just he's the most important rapper of the last 10, 12 years.
Bro, everything
wild.
is
Hold on.
regional.
I think.
Hold on for a second.
He's changed rap more than anyone else throughout that time period.
Man, shout out to Thug. That's wild. You can't.
You really don't think that?
To
me, that is so self-evidently obvious.
You think? Okay, tell me how.
He's one of them.
He definitely is one of them.
People just really didn't experiment with melodies and with
That's not true.
High pitch like him.
No, like melody. That's Drake.
Okay, and I agree. Drake is by far the most important rapper, and but he's at such a level that I almost don't even bother to put him in like the top 5 of rappers or whatever. I agree that in many ways Drake had to exist for Thug to exist in some ways. Like maybe
and Wayne too.
Yeah. Wayne did it a long time ago.
Wayne too.
I don't feel like I'm not happy with the way that I'm explaining how amazing what Young Thug brought to the table is, but I feel like he's definitely one of the most influential, like as in like him and Drake in the last 10, 12 years, the most influential for sure.
So Young Thug is the most unique talent that I've ever, because
he showed all these kids that it was okay to be weird as fuck in a way, musically, in a way that I don't think anybody else had up to that point.
So I think he got that from Wayne. I think, and not that he got anything from Wayne, because Young Thug. Well, you know what?
But
he did
Wayne
take
is
it further.
much more of a traditional rapper
He
in
is.
comparison to Thug. Thug took all of that and just went totally left field with it. You know?
He is. I personally think when I listen to Thug, I am amazed at what he can do with his voice. That's why I say like when what you talk about with metal is very important. Like these guys are in there, and sometimes it's like a math equation, right? With the rhythms and how fast they're gonna go and what they have to do and what it meets a certain criteria to be metal, right? And I think Thug, if you listen to early Thug and what he's done, he's figured out his instrument, and of course his instrument is his voice, to where he does insanely incredible things with his voice now. But the question is, like, when you're talking about a strictly hip hop thing, and this is a good conversation. Like, would that be hip hop? I personally think it is. I think it all is. But I'm telling you, these guys, I think the older hip hop heads or anybody who's in the Zulu Nation or all of these guys, they have very finite cultural sort of things that they look into it in.
And if you grew up in a hip hop scene in which like it's important that you be able to scratch, and it's important that you can scratch and then spin around and scratch with your back to the turntables and stuff. A lot of times I think about those people's cultural experiences and I'm like, it must be really weird and strange to see what hip hop has turned into when you grew up in an environment in which sampling and going and getting records from the store was like the most important thing in terms of your understanding of hip hop. And let's not forget that when we talk about hip hop originally, the rap was just the music. There was the DJing, there was the graffiti, and there was the beatboxing.
Right.
The graffiti and the beatboxing got left behind like 30 fucking years ago. Like that.
Well, it came back a little bit, not the beatboxing, but the graffiti.
Right, and there's still graffiti everywhere, and there's still people who beatbox. But in terms of like our understanding of what hip hop is, I mean, nobody bothers to mention those things anymore, which is kind of telling about how transitional this genre is. That it could, and basically, that these parts of it could be so important, and then now they could be basically never mentioned.
I still like it still is mentioning stuff too, because the basis of it, if you look at somebody like NWA, that was their way of, like you're saying, fuck the police. That was their way of expressing their stuff of what they was going through the community right now. And rappers are still doing that today, talking about their struggles, about where they're coming from. I mean, police are still fucking killing us. They still beating our ass. People are still speaking out against that shit. And, you know, like I was saying earlier, hip hop now was just way more accepted of way more shit. You said somebody like Fred Durst earlier. I think if Fred Durst came out in 2021, he would be considered a rapper. Because now we accept
from them
more.
Being a band, yeah, but he probably would have been popping on all these records. He would have been rapping on a Bruno Mars song, and we would all be like, "That's not a rap song," but Fred Durst is the rapper on that song.
Because would Post Malone be considered a rapper if he came up around those times with the type of music that he's doing now?
No.
Well, there used to be an alternative. I listen to Hollywood's Bleeding, and it's great music, but that's like an alternative record.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an alternative album. Like that's not
All his biggest songs are
Yeah.
basically alternative
Yeah,
songs
like
at this point.
And
you know?
they used to have that, like Four Non Blondes and all of that stuff like that, where it was they're singing, but they're more like working their way through the melody. Not quite that song because she's really singing, but like there was a whole alternative wave. It went away, and if you ask me, Post brought it back. Post music sound good, but like I wouldn't consider it to be. He ain't rapping. He was rapping on White Iverson a little bit. He raps sometimes. He rapping on Wild a little bit.
And that's
but
the thing is that people kind of put you in a bucket as soon as you come in the game. And I think when he came in the game with White Iverson, I mean, people forget that he was also like kind of lampooned for that because he really was kind of almost presenting himself as this like caricature of like black greatness. And it was kind of weird for a lot of people. But his music now is so far away from that. And like, what's his role on like Rockstar with 21 Savage? You know, he brings in a rapper and then he basically sings on it. It's like, that makes me wonder, like, if Marvin Gaye came out making the kind of, like, if Marvin Gaye existed right now, would we think of him as an R&B singer, or would he have just like also rapped a bit and sort of gotten the label of being a rapper?
He'd be R&B for sure nowadays.
he'd be R&B, but he probably would be rapping a little bit.
But it's so
too.
easy to just also rap that it, like somebody like Juice WRLD could have easily had a whole career making emo songs, but he's also just rapping because it's just like how if you're great at making R&B songs, you could probably rap a bit too, right? Like people don't really see the genres that clearly. Like it's, it's useless to them.
Beyonce be rapping.
Beyonce can hop on a song and basically be the rapper, and nobody thinks twice about it, right?
Beyonce be rapping, and Rihanna was rapping on that. Rihanna snapped on that Pharrell shit, that Lemon. You remember that song?
I don't know.
You get it out, you get it. Yeah.
That was not leaving. Yeah, you don't know that shit.
Kind of block a lot of the anybody singing. It just don't really make its way in here.
Who is the hottest little killer motherfucker that I'm not listening to right now? Because
ESTG.
Okay, see, he always knows.
ESTG's fire.
See,
He's not like a little killer rapper, but he's like my favorite gangster rapper right now, in my opinion.
I don't know these. The deepest I've been getting in my bag is obviously Pooh Shiesty, who's huge, who I love, Key Glock, who's huge. But I'm more like guys that haven't figured it out yet now. Can I shout somebody out?
Sure.
From Baton Rouge? It's like, I want to shout somebody.
I love Fredo Bang. I listen to Fredo Bang all the time.
Fredo is great.
One of my
But
favorite
Fredo
rappers.
out here, though.
He is out here.
I want to shout this dude out because I just got put on this guy from Baton Rouge. His name is Caleb Brown. No, is that him? Yeah, Caleb Brown.
I don't know.
He's from Baton Rouge, bro.
He might be thinking about a rap name. Caleb Brown. I don't know.
Caleb Brown. That's not a good rap name.
I mean, traditionally, I would say that's not a good rap name. Maybe if he's so talented that Caleb Brown becomes a big name, that's going to say a lot.
Caleb Brown from Baton Rouge. I like him. I fuck with him. I like guys that like you can still hear that they growing. Homie, the homie Drebo, you know him? Drebo. Damn. These niggas is right here from the West. Why you don't support the West Coast no more?
Come on, I support the West for sure.
I don't know.
Well, you don't, that's crazy.
We're not that deep.
Like if you say somebody like Draco or Blue Bucks or somebody like that, then you can.
You gotta hear
Blue Bucks guy.
Yo, I'm gonna play you some Remble songs.
Oh, Rimbo for sure
Who
too.
is Rimble?
He's a fool who basically got signed to Draco, or not even signed technically, but he just linked with him and they have a little thing going on. But he got a couple of songs. Like he only has like 5 or 6 songs out. I like a guy who can. There's a couple of the Gordon Ramsay freestyle. I really felt like
Gordon Ramsay.
It's fire.
and he'd be talking about going to Ruth Chris and shit. And in the interview, he just reveals that he's never been to Ruth Chris. I'm
I
like,
know,
oh,
but he said basically you go to every time you kill a op, you go to Roof Chris.
So he's still at the point.
he said he's never been there.
So he's still at the point that. But I tell you something though. That's why I like, because he's still at the point where he thinks Ruth's Chris is a nice steak.
Yeah. I'm still there too, though. I mean, that shit's expensive as hell.
Whoa. It's good, but if you were really rapping about a steakhouse, you probably go higher than Ruth's Chris.
I say Mastros.
Mastros, but Ruth's Chris tastes better than Mastros.
Not to me.
Yes, it do.
Nah.
You know it do, nigga.
Nah.
You just saying that because you
I
want
like
people
they
to think you
lamb.
rich because you got them chains on.
Oh my God.
You want people to think you rich
Fucking
because
rapper.
you feel like you a rapper.
No, I go eat there.
Yeah, if they put the shit in butter, it's better.
Listen, we don't have a problem with rappers. We don't have a problem with rapping. But we do have a problem with these thugs.
Those stuffs. Oh, that was so legendary.
Wow.
No, but I like that when you see a young rapper who embraces something that you as an older dude already don't think is cool. Like when Chief Keef and them came out and I'm a true religion fiend. And I'm just like, You wear True Religion. Those shits have been whack as fuck for years. They thought it was so dope because it was like the most expensive shit in the
True
mall.
Religion is coming back though.
Yeah. And honestly, when I walk in there, I'm like, I don't see why this shit shouldn't be hugely popular right now. It's all this ridiculous.
People always
shit.
recycle and do the same shit. Always. But you know, I remember back then, like niggas was wearing jabos, but niggas in LA wasn't rocking no jabos and shit like that. Like,
Shit, where I'm from, that was the fucking thing.
see, but you said where you from, right?
Woo!
But people used to like really doing that shit, like really like, and even like with us, we liked like platinum FUBU, and niggas wasn't on that shit like that.
Yeah.
Oh, like, did you ever wear Johnny Blaze? Nobody on the West was wearing like
I
Johnny
would
Blaze.
see it. Shout out Johnny Blaze. Just interviewed her, but the other
No,
Johnny
no.
Blaze.
How did that interview go?
It was cool.
Johnny Blaze. That's your lane though. You got the ladies.
Troubled women.
I don't know if I want to call them troubled, but you know the ladies, they come in here and they talk. You did the show with Selena and with what was it?
Eliza.
I do feel like they gravitate towards me and don't try to fuck me and don't think that I'm going to try to fuck them, which is kind of cool, I guess.
Yeah, probably like a safe space for them to talk about themselves too, where they feel like they're talking to someone who understands, who gets it, and who is not trying to like excoriate them for anything that they've done or anything that they've been through.
Yeah, I'm very pro sex worker.
Yeah, I mean that's important.
I mean, we were just interviewing these YouTubers, the minorities, who I think you would love, by the way. They're so goddamn funny. But they were sort of like shocked that people are out here marrying porn stars. And that was like, I was reading the comments on the Mike Malak interview where he's talking about breaking up with Lana Rhoades. And the comments are so singularly, what were you thinking dating a porn star in the first place? Of course this was going to happen. I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, Lana Rhoades is objectively extremely attractive. She objectively makes way more money than any of us and anybody in those comments.
Right.
And you guys are looking at this guy, Mike, who's a friend of mine, but realistically, he's a white guy from the East Coast in his 30s. And he dated that girl for like a year and a half, whatever. You got fucking 100 billion YouTube views off of putting her in his thumbnail. And you fucking dipshits in the comment think that the most important thing that he should be thinking about is the fact that she did porn a few years ago, even though she doesn't even do porn anymore. I'm like, you guys are so lost, in my opinion.
But see, the same exact thing happened when I told him about the Cash App and women and doing things like that, right? Niggas in the comments were saying, oh, no, that's simpish. I had Jason from the minorities come with me to the strip club, drink, see a whole bunch of women, and his whole perspective was like, oh, shit, I understand where you're coming from.
No, the comments were right about that, though. You are a simp, yeah.
This is cultural though. I remember we went to Cancun back in the day, and it was me and all my homies, and we had one of my other homies with him. He was white. We went to Cancun, and we go to like a wet T-shirt contest in Cancun and stuff. And there's this girl up there, and she got like dark hair, and she had the most beautiful breasts. That I was like, God damn. And we was all like, look at that white girl. She got this crazy, blah, 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 blah. We were watching it. And he fell in love. After the contest, which she won, he goes and he talks to her. They start going back and forth. And they're married now. Wow. That's where they met. Yo, do you know how long it took my niggas to accept this?
Really?
Oh, my God. I remember because she had to transfer schools to come and be with him, right? So she had to transfer schools from somewhere like in Maine or something like that and come be with him. And the whole time, my homeboys would be like, yo, bro, it's a dog. You met this chick showing her titties to everybody, and they would diss him about it. And to the point where at their wedding, she joked about it. She was like, yo, shout out to all of these people like when we was talking after, because, the first time they all saw me, like, I was flashing my breasts to them. It's just different.
Right.
It's just different. Like I mean, it's cool now. They got like 5 kids, but like, so it's like whatever now. I never cared, but like, it's just different. People look at that. It's a different way. Is that they look at that differently.
Right. Because I can understand having your reservations about a girl that just shows her tits on stage all night or whatever. But at the end of the day, bro, getting into a relationship it's like buying a used car. It's like, you know that this car's been on the road for a while. You know that all kinds of things might have happened. But if you could get that car at a low price because you realize that other people don't see the value, it's like buying a
At
stock.
a low value.
It's like a crypto vagina.
God.
If you think that this coin is undervalued and that if you buy it, it might be worth, and you put some elbow grease into it, and 2 years from now, it might be the most poppinest car on the block that's making $200,000 a month off of OnlyFans. I mean, that's an investment that you want to get into. That's what the game is about.
I mean,
yeah.
My thing is, I just think the hate for sex workers isn't rational. Because if we didn't like them, they wouldn't be sex workers. Like, to me, it's just not rational to insult the person that you jack off to. It's like a stupid, weird thing. It's like a weird thing that we almost do to make ourselves feel better. Like, at least we wouldn't do that. Like, we do some other things, but at least we wouldn't do that. That's one step before what it is that we would do. And it really has nothing to do with them. It has more to do with you. It's another job to me.
And a girl will meet a dude, and the dude will be sleeping on his friend's couch at the bar, trying to bum PBRs every night, etc. And they will still see some hope in you. Like, a girl will still see that guy and think, you know what? He's got a nice jawline. He could draw. He's got low body fat percentage.
They're always looking for a reason. Like, you ever seen this nigga sketch?
They want to soup you up. Yeah. They want to fucking soup you up and then drive that shit around the block. You need to be thinking about life the same way. Not maybe you, but think about girls like that. No. How can you upgrade her?
No, you're right when you talk about that. But nowadays, the girls coming up now, they're not trying to see the potential in men nowadays.
I'm talking about hipster-ass white girls who still will go for that. I agree that in your world, that's probably a little less likely.
Young black girls now coming up, they're basically telling guys that if you work a regular job, you ain't shit and you're not getting no pussy from them.
I don't think you can say that about all young black girls.
No, I'm just saying the media, the ones that are pushing that.
We have young black girls over there saying that's not
She's
true.
not giving niggas that work at McDonald's a chance.
Okay, so
because she knows that we would shame her.
Well, casual question.
I'm not going to shame her.
Casual question, though, seriously, because this is interesting to me. What is the obsession with the nigga that works at McDonald's archetype? So why is it?
I always say Foot Locker, but yeah, it's basically the same thing.
Why is it virtuous that you like somebody that works at McDonald's or Foot Locker? Like, why is that? I'm asking because this is a guy that worked at Best Buy. There's all of this.
Because if she was dating a guy who worked at McDonald's, then we would all 100% believe that she truly was in love with him. And that it wasn't based on anything besides his personality.
I believe that because
or maybe some free food.
As a person that worked at Target before, I had a job before.
But what does love mean? So when I say what does love mean, I mean like who somebody is. There's a lot that goes into that, right? So it's what you do, it's who you are, it's how you are, it's all of these things, it's whatever it is. So where you work is a part of that, right? Because like, if somebody was dating someone who was a hitman, you look and you'd say, hey, how could you date a hitman?
Right.
Right? And you make a value judgment. So to me, when I look at somebody, a girl that is with a dude that works at McDonald's, I don't think that she's any more, I mean, that's dope. People that work at McDonald's and work at Best Buy, all of these people have relationships, by the way. All of these people is fucking. You know what I'm saying? They all have relationships. But if you say that, if you meet a girl and she says, hey, I have a certain outlook on life and I need the person that I would have a certain outlook on life, I don't understand like why that's demonized.
And like you said, but see, the thing is too, is that, okay, in this industry, you have the IG models and you have the standard of that. The girls that are patterning themselves behind that, they're not giving guys that work at Best Buy and McDonald's a chance. They're sitting there, they want to get BBLs, they want to get tits, they want to do that. Why do they want to do that? They're doing that for Instagram, right? They want to be seen by somebody that has a big bag and to eventually take care of them. And if you go back, and that's where the line draws, where people like Kevin Samuels come into the middle of the shit, right? It's just that, okay, people don't call in there and saying, hey, he asks them all the time, what kind of guys do you want? Does he have to have, oh, I want a guy that makes over 6 figures and I want a guy that does this and does this. Okay, so if only 10% of men make 6 figures a year, why is every girl calling in wanting a guy with 6 figures? What happened to them? Honestly, wanting somebody to fucking love. Where does the line draw with that? If my little brother works at Target right now and I bring him to the club, the girls in there are gonna laugh at him because he ain't popping no bottles and shit like that. They're not gonna give him no fucking ass. And that's where the media is doing. Then you got girls like you said, the city girls or somebody else, or Cardi B, broke boys don't deserve no pussy. I know that's right. Like that's what's getting put out there
but
now.
What's broke? So to me, if you got income coming in, I think that's the thing that's the fun. So what's broke? If you got income coming in, right? If you got a job, you ain't broke.
But they're fantasizing that these lifestyles, these girls don't want a Honda no more. They want a Mercedes Benz. They want a big ass house. They want to go. They want to live. They want to go skiing in Aspen. They want to go to Dubai. They want to go to Turks and Caicos. If that's what you patting yourself behind, you're not going to give a little nigga that's working at Target a chance because you want to be taken care of.
Everything you just said, when I was 19, I didn't know existed. And I just want to say that I think that's a big part of why I turned out relatively normal, was because I didn't even know that I had those things that I could aspire to. And that's something that's different about kids.
And
now.
you also didn't have social media, and you also didn't have
Right.
all of the outlets that show you that now, because now girls will watch a show like Basketball Wives, and what does that tell a woman? It'll tell them, well, you can have a baby by somebody successful and you can make a career after that.
So my thing is this though. We talk about, Kevin Samuels and the women hitting up Kevin Samuels and asking Kevin Samuels, what they feel like they deserve in special man. Well, if you work at Best Buy or McDonald's, then what makes you think you deserve a beautiful ass? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And to me, there's nothing wrong with working there, but I think all of this has to do with entitlement. Hey, go find somebody that likes you and be with them. Don't fucking care about the people who don't like you. Don't worry about the people who don't like you. I think we need to do more of that, period.
Facts.
I don't want to hear no more, this person told me I would never make it. How about you introduce me to the people that told you you were going to make it? Mm-hmm. Like, where the teachers that was like, baby, this fucking paper is full of red X's, but I know you're going to be something. The people that helped you out, the people that put you on. I'm telling you, the brothers out there, the sisters out there that's working at Best Buy and McDonald's is somebody for you to fuck.
Facts.
Don't be pressed about somebody with 5 million followers. That ain't for you. Maybe one day it will be. But I think everybody has their expectations inflated, right? I think everyone does. That's why you see dudes on there stunting, trying to be in a game that they go out there and just be a person. It's just getting weird is my thing. It's all of these things. I don't give a fuck if you got a BBL. I don't give a fuck if you. Sometimes I think this shit is hilarious. You know what I'm saying?
Some cartoon BBLs out there for
sometimes
sure.
I think this shit is hilarious, but if that's what you want to do,
And see,
knock yourself the fuck out.
that goes back to what you were saying earlier. As long as you do it because you want
wanna
to do it,
yeah.
then it's different. Like a lot of the narrative now is that, okay, if I get my ass done, if I get this done, a higher value of men are going to treat me or want to fuck with me. And that's why a lot of girls are doing that shit now. You know what I'm saying? I've seen girls
But it's
say,
working because the
it is
same
working.
4 or 5 chicks, you know what I'm saying?
It's working. It is working.
It's working.
I've seen girls get the BBL and they're in a Young Thug video like 6 months later, and then their OnlyFans is cracking, and they don't even want to talk to the fucking dudes that they were talking to before that they used to be pulling up to the shop with and stuff. I do want to point out though that it was pretty fascinating when we were talking to the minorities about this conversation, because them being from Sacramento and not LA, the way we were describing girls was so foreign to them that they clearly had not had much experience dealing with the kind of girls that we're talking about. But it's the same reason why we draw so much attention to a Pooh Shiesty or whoever, a gangster-ass rapper. We draw attention to the girls who are the worst, most toxic examples of girls just basically falling for this consumerist bullshit. And we ignore the fact that, like, if I was single right now, what kind of girl would I be trying to get in a relationship with? Probably not that kind of girl. Probably a more normal girl, right?
Do you have the nice girls on your podcast?
No.
Not at all.
Well played, yeah.
Dude, there's the thing. You know what I mean?
We always gravitate towards the most shocking version of any of that. Like when we talk about black metal bands, we talk about the bands that fucking killed each other and burnt down churches and ended up going to jail for eating each other and shit like that. When we talk about rap, we gravitate towards the most extreme examples of rap.
And what does that tell the youth? that they have to do that to be accepted by somebody like you or another platform.
Because that, at the end of the day, it's all clickbait. It's all something to get you through the door. Yeah, the BBL, the ass might look disgusting in real life, but if it looks good in that Instagram photo, it's going to get the guy through the door. They're looking for customers one way or another.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think we all think pieces to death probably a lot more than we should. You know, we think about it, we talk about it, we get mad based on experiences that we don't even have anymore. You know, and we put a lot of our emotions into our critical thinking. I'm guilty of it as much as anybody else is, but the reality is, man, concentrate on who fuck with you. Now, concentrating on who fuck with you is harder to get somebody to fuck with you. Well, fuck it, then it's harder. It's harder to find real. Well, fuck it, then it's harder. But I can tell you, if you're open to it, you'll find it. It's like sometimes shit gets harder. Things change. It used to be back in the day in 1900 or whatever. You go to a general store, you see a girl, she's 16. You look at her dad, you go, I want to marry that there girl.
Imagine doing that these days.
You know what I'm saying? You're like they was young like that. Like you go, I want to marry that there girl. You give her flowers for 3 weeks, and then after that, she has to stay married to your ass for the rest of her life. Nah, it's different now. Now women put some they got some skin in the game. They choosing up too. If you don't like it, then find somebody. But there's plenty of women out there that aren't like that. Like there's plenty of men out there that don't care about flexing on the gram. It's enough.
Yeah.
It's enough.
They just got to find each other and be ready to build something.
Build. Yeah.
Let me ask you this.
Sure.
Do you think that the Rory and Mal podcast will ever supersede the Joe Budden podcast?
I don't know. I think when the Rory and Mal podcast comes, it's gonna be super hot initially.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Because who knows?
I like both of them a lot, but it also, you know, when you think about a podcast, you're used to there being the fucking Vladimir Putin leading the thing, you know?
Did you just compare Joe to Vladimir Putin?
and not with any reservations either. I think it's a pretty clear cut example. Yeah.
Jesus.
But I just wonder, like, you know, is either of them ready to be the lead MC? And will there be a third added to the podcast? I wonder. I don't know. It's like
they might get a third. I'll tell you one thing. I think they'll have a very successful podcast. I think, when you say whether or not it'll be as successful as the Joe Budden podcast.
That's a high bar.
Yeah, I mean, there's not many podcasts are.
If they end up at 20 or 30% of that, that's still a great business for them to have.
I don't think it'll be more than 20 or 30%.
Initially, I think it'll probably be almost like 100%. But I think that over time, we'll see where
when you take pieces of anything away, it's never going to be the same. So even for Joe, like Ish, and shout out to Ish and shout out to my nigga. What's my nigga name?
Ice.
Shout out to my nigga. That's my guy too. My bad. Yeah, but like it's a whole different dynamic. And then those loyal listeners, they're like, we may go over there now. We may go over here now. So it's going to be a divide for both parts.
I think it's been a little bit more traumatizing than I'd like to admit watching that whole thing fall apart, just because of the fact that in terms of building out the No Jumper show and trying to create more shows and everything, I've always like looked at their dynamic as that's what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to have a friend rapport thing going on with a couple of my buddies, and we'll be able to just really build like a consistent presence like the way that they have with the Joe Budden podcast. To watch that all fall apart was kind of upsetting, and it has really made me sort of like reconsider everything, at least in terms of like, okay, well, what do I have to do to basically make sure that we're not just building up a bunch of personalities on this show and then at some point it's all going to come crashing down because of, some combination of business and personality?
Yeah, it's just sad. It's sad because it's sad for the listeners and it's sad for those guys. Because one thing is, for the listeners, it's a dynamic that they were sort of tuning in for. And Joe by himself is obviously super talented, and Rory has his own energy, and Mal has his own energy, right? But the dynamic between the three of them, it would be little moments in the Joe Budden podcast that would be dope. You know what I mean? Because you couldn't have those moments with anybody else other than your boys. And to be honest with you, people like narratives, and the narratives of it's the three of us against the industry it's the three of us against all of these forces that are trying to cook things, and we're standing up for the creators, and we're standing up for people that don't have voices in these rooms, and we're doing it because we've done it. Like, we're doing it. We know how to do this, right? We know how to tell you how to do this because we've done it. That's what we're doing right now. We're doing that. We're actively doing what we know you can do. And to see that narrative more than anything fractured, to see that fractured for a lot of fans of the show is probably the hardest thing. Because then you start to ask yourself, well, can that be done? So when you're saying that it's about a certain thing, if it's about creators, if it's about people being independent, if it's about people locking together in community and brotherhood and going up against all of these other things and coming out on the other side of it winners, right? If that's what it's about and that's how it looked, but that didn't work out, people start to doubt themselves like, well, no, it's the same shit. It's we're together, money comes in, we're apart. Same thing that happened to the fucking Temptations, same thing that happened to New Edition, same thing that happened, obviously, bringing up musical groups, same thing that happened to a lot of other people. Money come into it, this come into it, there's no transparency here. I think this is the way this is supposed to go. I think that is the way that is supposed to go. We're not on the same page. Now we got to all go our separate ways. And so the reality of that situation is that as a community, of creators, of black creators, of whatever we are, we definitely do want one point in the future where that stops happening, where the money stops, where the fame stops corroding things that we've built together. I think if you really care about those guys, and obviously I know Joe and me and Rory and me and Maul are actually close. Those are homies. More than anything besides the drama, you're upset that went the way that it went. But it speaks to a lot of deeper things, though, I feel like, in the culture right now.
I hate the people who said, Joe Budden, there's a lot of people, I forget who was like most famously quoted as saying this, I think it was Charlemagne, but basically said like, Joe's good at starting things, he's good at getting something off the ground, he's good at getting it going, but ultimately he'll always find a way to fuck it up. And as somebody who's been paying attention to Joe Budden's career for like 20 years now, I really liked seeing him be so successful at the podcast thing because it made you feel like, okay, Joe's done fucking it up.
Right.
And then from my viewing, my perspective, I do feel like ultimately the thing that killed the podcast was Joe letting his ego get too big and not treating the people that were integral to his business with the respect that they ultimately deserved. Like when I'm hearing Rory and Maul talk about not getting to see the financial statements and basically even if what they're saying is not real or it's not true, that the fact that they were able to get to the point where they felt so not seen or heard in regards to what they felt like they were deserving from the business, that's a failure of Joe's. The fact that they felt that way, regardless of what the reality might be, if there's a different version, I'm just trying to not discount Joe's potential narrative about their side of things. But if if AD ultimately starts to feel like Adam's not treating me fairly and this shit's all fucked up, then, we need to have an open enough dialogue that when he comes to me and says that we can have a conversation about it,
I mean, yeah. So when you look at it, I guess their side of it is that they were on a profit-based pay scale,
right?
And they needed accurate accounting to be able to know how much money that they deserve. And if I'm clear on what Joe said that he sent over accounting and they say that it was on an Excel spreadsheet, and what they want to see is the actual language in the actual contract, right? That tells them how much they're supposed to be getting. And Joe says that he was contractually bound to not share that with anyone. So he can't share that with anyone. Let's say that all of that's true, right? There's a communication breakdown there somewhere.
Right.
Like even if all of that's true, right? Even if what he's saying is true and what they're saying is true, there's still at some point a communication breakdown to where they don't know what they're entitled to.
Yeah.
And then even after they're told, right, they still refuse to believe it because the table setting around that wasn't probably as firm as it needed to be. And apparently they had tried to, whatever these issues are, they had tried to work through them for a long time and they were unable to. And you think that if there was an out to it, if there was a way to figure it out, then they would have figured it out because they had the hottest hip hop podcast in the world for X amount of years. So you would think that would be the thing.
And in the process, it seems like they ended up feeling so disrespected that there was just no repairing the relationship. Like there wasn't like Joe was going to be able to just show them the books and make them happy at a certain point because they ended up feeling so disrespected about the whole thing.
Well, look, people have different personalities, right? There's a certain way that me and my friends sort of go back and forth. There's a certain way that I'm sure you go back and forth with your homies. Do you go back and forth? So if it gets to a point to where we can't even talk no more, then like, what's the point? They talking for a living. So if they can't talk anymore, anything that happens on the podcast, like, would be fake. So all of this stuff is a symptom. This is a symptom of a greater type of deal. And the symptom is of us getting on platforms and talking about each other as black men, as brothers, as creatives, as all of this in ways that are derogatory and crazy. And the question is, like, why are we doing that? Like, why are we getting on platforms and talking about other people's deals? Like, why are we getting on because we don't know what's in other people's deals. Like, we really don't know. We can speculate and we can talk about who knows business, who doesn't know business, who knows this, who knows that. And all of this to me it's corrosive, and I don't understand why we big willying one another. It's enough for everybody. And look, if I have political differences with somebody and I feel like someone is hurting people, then obviously you guys know that I'm gonna be on my platform and I'm gonna talk about it. If I feel like there's harm being done, then obviously I'm gonna talk about it. But the reality is that people are free to do business in the way that they are doing business, man. People are free to do whatever they want. For me, I'm gonna be honest with you. The company that I have, 6 Feet Over Productions, we produce Two Distant Strangers. We won an Academy Award for it, right? That's me and my partners. We own that company. We own that company so we could exude creative control over that. That's why it's important that we have that. Other situations I have partnerships. Sometimes I'm employed places, all kinds of different situations. My career is diversified. I have a movie production deal. I have a TV thing. I have pilots in development where I'm working with people. Have a pilot, you guys saw 50 put up, a pilot, Hip Hop Homicides with 50 Cent, Mont Scott Young. Something that we're doing where I work for them. You know what I mean? It's all about what you want to do. And no one crafts for you how you should be doing it. And nobody's doing it right. They're doing it their way. They're doing it their way. And I think the saddest thing about everything that happened with Joe and Rory and Mal was that people really looked at the podcast itself as a blueprint about how to do something. And it's not that they shouldn't look at it like that now. It's not like they shouldn't look at it like that now. There's a different dynamic there now, but it's not like they shouldn't look at it like that now. But the reality is, I think a lot of people's trust in the message was broken. Not so much in the people, in the message,
Right. No, definitely. I think that to a lot of people, like, that podcast was the most relatable podcast they could imagine because it's 3 or 4 dudes sitting in a living room talking about shit. They could very much imagine themselves doing that with their friends. It just turns out these guys are a little funnier, a little bit more knowledgeable, a little bit more influential, whatever. And I think people love that. And to see it so quickly sort of evaporate and for it to be revealed, oh, actually, this is a business. I mean, you should have known that the whole time. But for the family nature of it to just sort of fall by the wayside so quickly, regardless of who you might want to say is at fault, yeah, it was pretty upsetting to a lot of people. And this is one thing that I think this with gangs all the time. I think this because I watched fucking Hotel Rwanda for the first time the other day, which in itself was fucking, that was mind-blowing. Like, that was one of the most emotionally affected I think I've ever felt by a movie. But basically, if you leave motherfuckers to themselves and you don't attempt to sort of establish some rules, some charters, some ways that you guys are going to be able to work proactively together positively, then this kind of like infighting is almost like inevitable. If you don't have that sort of conversation and communication between people, it's so likely that things are going to end up this way. And that's why I just want to have, you know, with what I'm building now, after watching all that unfold, it becomes even more obvious to me. I don't want anybody to ever feel like there's stuff that they can't talk to me about here.
Right. And it's, once again, it's like, it's about everybody defining what it is that they want for themselves. Obviously, it seems like things were working their way and people were in the dark about them. You know, just in the dark about them, misunderstanding, whatever it was. But, yo, man, we can talk about podcasts and business and all of that stuff till we blue in the face. Man, what about the fact that these dudes were friends?
Mm-hmm. And that was the whole thing that we liked about the podcast, is that it really felt like, oh, these guys are real friends.
And also, just in a weird way to take pleasure or solace in watching somebody else go through something. It's weird the way shit goes for me, right? Because when I think about now, right, and it's funny because it's a story that like we have like a weird thing, like one of my neighbors and I had a situation, like we'll talk about that
one day. I don't know if we got time to talk about that today.
Right. But what I'm saying is, what I really realized in that situation, I had said something about somebody on TMZ. They ended up becoming my neighbor, right?
And half of LA is a neighbor living there, by the way.
Right. They ended up becoming my neighbor after years and years and years of kind of running into this person, and ended up becoming my neighbor. So now they live on the 5th floor, I live on the 1st floor, whatever. So you have to see somebody, now you have to say something. And you realize like the power of what it is that you're saying. Like these are people, human beings that got families. But everybody is like that. So when you spit a word at somebody, when you say something about someone, you had damn well better mean it, and it damn well better be worth something. Like, because when you say this about people, you know, I see pictures with Joe and his son and stuff like that, and that looks beautiful. Beautiful house, beautiful that, beautiful this. You look at somebody that like came up out of all of the stuff that he came up out of, and he winning, man, that should be exciting to me. That should be like, I'd be like, yo, man, look at this black man that they can't kill, you know? So if I was to say something, I would think about trying to undo that. And I think everybody has to kind of look at things like that. Everyone has to kind of look, okay, if you're going to shoot at somebody, the question is, why are you firing? Like, what's the point? Like, what are we doing? Like, how are we going back and forth? Like, what is all of this stuff? By the way, this don't have to be the end. This could be a season. Don't be surprised in the future. And I'm not speaking for Rory or Maul. I know these are my guys. But don't be surprised in the future if you see everybody sitting back down on that couch. And if that happens, if they all do sit back down on the couch, if they in some time in the future get over it and whatever's wrong gets made right, don't jump in the comments talking about who weak or who lost or who won. Just be happy about it. You know what I'm saying? Or if not, just fuck it. And if you don't want to fuck with Joe no more because Joe done too much, then don't fuck with Joe. But just, my deal is I'm going to be less emotional about everything. Just less emotional about it. Just less emotional about it. It's about what works for people, what doesn't work for people. You know?
It's funny you say that because I feel like so much of what I'm trying to do in therapy is trying to basically get more emotional. I'm trying to like feel shit more. I'm trying to be less hardened and
But you're
tough.
feeling your feelings, not other people's.
Yes.
So that's the thing is, you feel your feelings, right? Like feel the feelings that you have. Be open to your feelings, right? Don't let other people dictate their feelings to you.
Right.
Don't let somebody get you out of whatever you're in, right? Don't let somebody come and make you and give you an emotion. You know, be emotionally strong enough, be centered enough to stand granted in who you are and kind of deal with the things that are coming and keep your logic and your analytical brain moving forward. Don't let somebody else give you their emotion. And I think, and that's the hardest thing to learn. The hardest thing to learn is to not accept somebody else's hate and then meet it back with hate. And then take somebody else's pain and then meet it back with pain. That's very difficult to learn, especially when you turned up. Sometimes sometimes it'll get you killed, you know? What you need to do is take whatever they're giving you, stand, collect it, calm, and respond. and respond and not react. And so, once again, it's all love with everybody with me, and I just hope it's all love with everybody else. And that's the way it goes.
Well said. I hope Parks is okay in all this.
Man, they giving it to Parks the worst.
Why? Just for holding Joe down?
Yeah, they giving it to Parks the worst. But look, I mean, fuck, niggas. Where's that coming from?
Somebody playing fucking Candy Crush or something?
Is that me?
I'm blaming it on Yuri.
Everybody's straight, bro. Everybody's still making money. Everybody good. Well,
Yeah, because ultimately, like, as much as we all feel like fuck. It's not me.
Ain't me. Van.
That was that Caleb Brown.
We're all just looking around like there's a fucking ghost in the room.
Right.
Fuck. Shit, I think that was pretty good. We was on here for almost 3 hours.
I missed my meeting, but it was worth it.
We don't really? Who's
did.
your meeting with?
I'll tell you later.
It's not about that important.
Yeah.
It was important.
This was pretty important
You
too.
blew it off?
It was cool. It ain't every day I get to see my homie.
That's true. Man.
You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
Good talk, man.
Always,
Appreciate
baby.
you guys for real.
Always.
And anything you want to tell them to go check out?
Yeah,
Brown?
man. Caleb Brown. Check out Caleb Brown. Check out Ringerverse, nerd shit at Ringerverse. Check that out. Also, Higher Learning with Van Lathan and Rachel Lindsay.
You got to bring
On
Compton
Ringer.
AD on Higher Learning.
Definitely got to bring Compton AD on Higher Learning.
I want to play some video games too.
I'm with that.
You know I'm big into that.
What you fucking with on the video games right now?
I like story games. I'm about to play Resident Evil.
Oh, that's
The
dope.
Village, yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah.
I have some fond memories of playing Resident Evil for PlayStation in like 1998. So that is a game that I could see myself dumping some hours into.
It's totally different now. It's first person now.
Yeah, but there's a lot of mysteries and scary shit.
Mm-hmm.
I could get into that.
Yeah, I play with the Oculus. Real quick before I go. The
What's
Oculus,
that?
like the fucking
That shit was
With
giving me
the headset?
headaches, man.
You like that?
I like it.
I got bad headaches from VR, bro.
I like, bro, the Oculus. You know what you do? This is funny. You get the Oculus, and then you get somebody else to tape you while you're playing the Oculus. You look so fucking stupid. You have there's a game called Richie's Plank Experience, to where like you're up on like the 99,000th floor,
and I did not go off.
and like you're walking across a plank, and you're walking in your living room, and you're like, oh fucking
And
shit,
scary as fuck.
bro.
I did that in Vegas. They got
does
some
sound
shit like that, and it really looked like you're on a fucking building.
Right.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Damn. All right.
We
Next
out.
time we hang out, VR.
Okay.
Appreciate you.
I'm with it. No problem. man.
Very rare. Van Lathan, No Jumper, coolest podcast in the world. Check us out on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes. Like, comment, and subscribe. NoJumper.com if you want to support. Friday, we'll be listening to your music. Appreciate you.